Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today I fired our family therapist after she asked for tips. My ex and I have a 12-year-old son who's going through some things lately. We found a therapist and we've been seeing her for a couple of years now. It hasn't been life-changing for me in any way. In fact, it became more of a pointless chore, like making your bed or folding your clothes. I might have gotten a few things out of it, but would not do it again. A few weeks ago, I had told our therapist that it's bizarre to not have to worry about money for the first time in my life. I make good money and I don't have many bills. I'm saving like $1,000 a month. Last week, the therapist asked me if I could start making a copayment. I don't have a copayment because my insurance covers 100% of therapy sessions. I explained that to her and she said that was true, but maybe I could start paying like $20 cash because she's not making a lot with what my insurance pays her, like a tip. I was at a loss for words. I said, "And I suppose this has no relation to me telling you that I have disposable income from a few weeks ago?" She said of course not. It was like she was asking for a raise. I said I'd think about it. I found nothing about tipping your therapist. I talked to my ex about it and said that I was firing the therapist. She told me not to throw away 2 years of work, and I said this therapist tried to take advantage of me. She offered to pay, and I said I'm not stopping you. But I'm not doing the sessions anymore, and neither is our son. The trust I had in our therapist is broken. I left a voicemail and text message explaining that we weren't in need of services anymore. I haven't heard back. Guess what? Our lives didn't fall apart, and the therapist replied that I totally misunderstood the whole tip thing. Not the jerk, and I'd contact your insurance company. They'll probably want to drop her entirely if they find out about this. Yeah. Also, if the therapist is registered with any type of governing body, I would report them. I'm a nurse and registered with my provincial college of nurses. It's unethical for any healthcare provider to ask for any type of gratuity, and if I did so, I would and should be reported and lose my license to practice. Not the jerk. That was trashy, and she needs to bill the insurance for more if she wants a raise. It's fine to think your time is worth more, but there are channels for this sort of thing. One slight issue might be unilaterally canceling the therapist your family has worked with. Your family not falling apart isn't really an indicator of her usefulness. Sounds like you're projecting how you personally feel about therapy onto your other family members. I certainly understand wanting to pursue a different therapist, but maybe wait until a replacement has been secured. I don't know. Everyone sucks here. Firing her was the right thing to do, but you're using this as an excuse to take your son out of therapy. Your son, who is going through things, should not lose the support just because you find it to be a waste of time. You don't see the point in therapy, fine, but don't use "our lives didn't fall apart" as justification for keeping your son from mental health treatment that he needs. The more I think about it, the more I question if you actually did misunderstand what she was saying and spun it because you find therapy worthless. Am I the jerk for not giving my engagement ring to my late fiance's family? I was engaged to John after dating for 4 years. When he proposed, the ring he used was 2 sizes too big. We went to the store that he bought it from 2 weeks before proposing, and he kept the receipt, got the right size, and kept the same style. We did plan to have the wedding after 3 years of planning and saving. 10 months after the proposal, John passed in an accident. I used the savings for wedding to pay for his funeral. The day after the funeral, John's brother came to me asking for the ring. I asked why, and his response was that the ring had been passed down their family for 5 generations. Told him that was BS because I have proof that the ring was bought for me less than a year ago. We argued for it a bit and he then stormed out. Then I get the call from John's family saying that I'm a liar and demanding the ring. Then I got a letter from their lawyer. In the letter, they also demanded that I reimburse them for costs of John's funeral. So I got myself a lawyer, showed the proof about the ring and how I paid for the funeral in court, and I won. I thought the madness was over until John's sister recently messaged me. She and her boyfriend are engaged but haven't gotten a ring, and she wants John's ring. After I said no, she went crazy and messaged me nonstop demanding it. I blocked her over and over, but she keeps finding a way around it. I was having brunch with my friend. My phone was on the table, a message from his sister popped up, and my friend saw it. My friend knows about everything. I explained her messages, and friend believes I'm the jerk and I should just give her the ring. She told my other friends, and they're all saying the same thing now. Now I'm doubting myself. So, am I the jerk? Extra info about the ring. The ring is from a company that designs jewelry based on movies and mass-produce each style in different sizes. This company started after the year 2000. When we went to the store to get the right size, John asked for ring 1 to be swapped with right size and same style. If he did modify ring 1 with any family diamonds, he would have asked for ring 1 to be resized. After the swap, and when telling his parents about the engagement, I showed them the ring and John told them where he bought it from and about the size swap. His parents never said anything about an heirloom ring and family diamonds. It was after the funeral they started saying that their great-great-great-grandparents were the ones that bought the ring and it's an heirloom. John's parents messaged me about not being able to afford the funeral. I paid for everything for the funeral. His parents didn't pay at all. I guess during my grief, it might have made me forget that his family owned most of the business and housing accommodations in town. It was during court that I found out he had life insurance and that money went to his parents and it was 2 times the cost of the funeral. Extra info about court. When I received their lawyer's letter, I thought it might be fake, but I called my friend, who's also a lawyer, and I explained the situation to him and asked him to check if the letter was real or fake. He told me to meet him with the letter and all my documents for the ring and funeral. He said the letter is real and he would help me. I did think that after their lawyer saw my proof, that might be the end of the madness, but the next thing I knew, we were in court. Most of the time I was confused, but I just spoke the truth and showed all of my proof. Reasons why John's sister wants the ring. In her first message asking for the ring, she said that John would want her to have it. It would feel like John is part of her next step in her life and let his spirit know that he's not forgotten. To explain why my friends think his sister should have the ring, the friend from brunch who saw the messages from sister and told the others about it, read sister's first message asking for the ring. Friend believes this is a good valid reason for the sister. Friend also believes the ring should actually be used, not stuck in a box somewhere or most likely lost. I pointed out that I did use the ring. I wore it during engagement, court madness with his family, and kept it on for a year after I won the case. Then only wearing the ring on his birthday and anniversary of our first meeting, when he proposed and when he passed. Friend called me a sad, selfish jerk and stormed off. Next thing I know, my other friends started messaging me about me being a jerk and sister should get the ring. After the sister's recent messages, I have called my lawyer friend. I sent him screenshots of her messages, and we got a meeting this week. I'm also thinking my friendship with the friends that say that I'm the jerk should give the ring to his sister. I'm also rethinking my friendship with these friends who say that I'm the jerk and I should give the ring to his sister. Not the jerk. It would be different if the ring had been a family heirloom, but it's clearly not. Perhaps you should get a restraining order or sue for harassment. I'd have your lawyer send a cease and desist letter to the sister demanding that she stop harassing you. Sometimes a lawyer letter can be enough to shut people up, not the jerk. My boss was cheating on his wife, did me over, so I told her. This was about 5 or so years ago. I was working as a server at a pretty nice place. It was a brand new restaurant, so servers as well as managers are still getting their grip on things, and things are changing rapidly as management figured out what works best, etc. We had this assistant GM we'll call Carl that had a terrible superiority complex. He would treat me and the rest of the staff like we were always incompetent, but was super buddy-buddy and friendly with the GM and owner, so nothing was ever said or done about his behavior. Carl was married to his very pregnant wife, who we'll call Sarah, that would come in around lunch quite often to bring him some homemade goodies and say hi. This was incredibly awkward for the staff, as we all knew Carl was hooking up with another server that we'll call Rebecca. Rebecca would also often be working when his wife would come in and would be extra friendly towards her. Carl would kiss his wife and be sweet and loving, etc. I didn't say anything, and neither did anyone else, even though we often talked about how terrible we all felt for Sarah and whether we should. But ultimately, nothing was ever said until I'm working a crazy dinner rush, in the weeds, still doing a great job with my tables as I had already been serving for around 8 years at this point, when Carl calls me over to a table. The guests are sitting with their freshly brought out dishes as Carl proceeds to ask me in the most condescending tone, "Can you tell me what's missing from this table?" I proceed to look and realize one of the guests doesn't have a steak knife yet. Totally my job to bring one before steak is served. I messed up. So I say, steak knife, and proceed to turn to go grab one. Carl grabs my arm and forces me to stand there as he tells me how unacceptable it is to forget a steak knife, and that these types of mistakes will not be tolerated and I should be very careful about remembering these things going forward, etc. The guests look very uncomfortable at this point, and because of his raised tone and how close the booths are, I notice the neighboring tables are listening as well. I flushed red and apologized and went to go get the steak knife. Proceeded to do very well the rest of my shift. The next few weeks, my shifts are cut to 2 lunch shifts a week and no dinner shifts, compared to my usual 4 dinner shifts and 3 lunch shifts, running a double one of the days. I became very concerned immediately as I'm living pretty much week to week off my tips and paycheck. I go into my next shift early and ask to speak with the manager. Carl's already in his office waiting. I ask about my schedule and he proceeds to tell me that they've hired new staff and everyone's hours have been reduced, etc. Okay, only when I go and ask my coworkers, 2 of them complain that they were given my shifts and actually don't want them, and they were upset to be working the weekend, etc. Same thing happens for 2 more weeks before I'm finally able to speak with our GM, who informs me that Carl does the scheduling and did voice the steak knife incident and use that as his rationale that I'm not cut out for dinner shifts. I'm livid as I really was working so hard, was recognized by my other managers for doing so well, and was never addressed for any other issues, only given praise. This proceeds to happen for another month before I finally get another server job I had applied for pretty much 2 weeks after. I quit the other place. I excel, and I'm quickly promoted to closing the new restaurant as well as given the best closing shifts because of my work ethic. As all of this is happening, I really kept replaying every conversation I had with Carl and how absolutely rude and demeaning he was to not only me, but everyone else. We often had girls cry during their shift because of his behavior. So I tried to see if I can find his wife on Facebook as I know her first and last name. I found her right away. And I'm no longer working there, so I decided to send her a message right from my personal account detailing what I saw with him and Rebecca while I was working there. I mean, it was terrible. Rebecca wasn't shy about telling anyone who would listen about the hotels they'd rent for the weekend, what their love life was like, how he would say that his wife just wasn't enough for him anymore, etc. I told her everything with as much detail as possible. She reads the message, but I get no response. 2 weeks later, I hear that they're divorcing, and he's been fired because his conduct was finally revealed to the owner after another server quit on the spot in the middle of a shift because Carl yelled at him in front of the staff about not folding the napkins correctly. Last I heard, Carl moved to a small town in the middle of nowhere where he's the manager at a local diner. His wife remarried and took full custody of their baby. Am I the jerk for refusing to feed my husband's nieces and nephews? I, 26 female, have been with my husband, Caden, 26 male, for 8 years, and we've been married for 4. We have a 2-year-old together, and we're expecting baby number 2. My relationship with Caden's brother and sister-in-law has never been great. She got really weird about me pretty quickly, and things soured from there. Caden told me his sister-in-law was jealous of the fact that I hit it off so well with his mom and sister, but especially his sister, and that his brother had always kind of followed his sister-in-law's lead. Seems his sister-in-law was around the family since she was a kid, and she and my brother-in-law have been together since high school. She always thought she would be like the second daughter for the family, but sister-in-law and her have always clashed a little and were never tight. Caden has been great about standing up for me when needed, and he has shut down his sister-in-law on more than one occasion when she was being rude. One of the things that has resulted from all of this is Caden's sister-in-law insisted I will never be her kid's aunt. They have specifically been told I am not their aunt and they are not to call me Aunt Emmy. I've been kept at a distance from the kids during family gatherings, and generally sister-in-law will ensure I don't interact with them. Caden sees them less as a result because he refuses to have me leave our home so they can visit, something his sister-in-law has tried to insist on. My relationship with sister-in-law is the best though, and we are close. She has a kid the same age as mine, and she'll come over and we hang out with our toddlers. Since she's here so often, I will often have enough food for both kiddos. She has picked up some inspiration from me on how to introduce food to toddlers since she said that her kids eat better since they started hanging out with us. She mentioned it at a family dinner recently because our parents commented how much better her kiddo was eating and the different plate that she used. She said it was all thanks to me and was saying how she really owed me one. Caden's sister-in-law asked why she hangs out with me so much and never spends time with her. It brought up some of the underlying issues simmering between the two of us. She then asked why I never do that for her kids and why I'm not sharing my vast knowledge with her. Caden jumped in and said she has made her feelings clear about me and has ordered me to stay away from her kids, so how am I supposed to do any of that with her or them? The very next day, she asked if the kids could come over for lunch, and I said no. She asked about some other day, and I said no again. She then told me I was a jerk and excluding her kids. I told Caden what happened, and he talked to his brother, or more like fought with him. I do feel kind of bad for the kids and would love to get to know them better, but I don't trust their parents in any of this. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She's jealous and now wants to horn in on what you and other sister-in-law are doing. I bet if you did have them over, the food wouldn't be right and she'd have all sorts of demands and she would expect your family to pay for it. Or she'd drop them off and disappear for the day. She wants a free babysitter and free food for her kids. Good for you and husband putting a stop to it ever starting. If anything, her family should ask if your kids can come over so you would have a break from being pregnant and all. My boyfriend doesn't want me to post our pregnancy announcement on social media. I'm 24, female, and I've been with my boyfriend, who's 25, for just under 2 years. We celebrate our anniversary in December. And a few months ago, we found out that I was pregnant. It wasn't planned, but I've always dreamed about becoming a mother, so I was very happy about it, and he was also very excited about becoming a father when I told him the news. We told our parents and siblings after the first ultrasound at 8 weeks and slowly told our closest friends in the following few weeks. Initially, when we discussed it, we agreed to post an announcement for all of our extended family and friends on Instagram after the first trimester, when I hit 13 weeks. The time came around and I began to suggest various ways of announcing it, planning what pictures to use, captions, etc. But he shut it down and said he thinks it's too early and it's better that we wait until we find out the gender. Well, a month later, we found out that we're having a girl, and once again, I began the discussion of the announcement post, and once again he shut it down and said we should wait until halfway through the pregnancy. I questioned him on this, asking why was he so hesitant and why couldn't he give me an answer other than he doesn't think it's the right time. My Instagram account is private and followed only by friends and families I know, while his is public. He's a professional athlete in his sport, and he has thousands of followers who he does not know. I thought he may have concerns over his private life mixing with his public life, so I suggested we only post the announcement on my account, as most of his friends follow me anyway, and he can tell his extended family each individually. He said he didn't care about that, but wouldn't elaborate on why he doesn't want me to post about our pregnancy. In the meantime, I also noticed that he changed the captions of some of his Instagram posts with me in them to remove any indication of how long we've been together. For example, last year he posted a lovely post celebrating our 1-year anniversary, and I noticed that he changed the caption a couple of days ago to remove any reference to an anniversary or that we had been together 1 year. I'm wondering if he's feeling insecure at how early on in the relationship we're pregnant and is having doubts over the pregnancy, or if there's someone that we both know that he doesn't want to see the post. Has anyone else been in this situation before? Should I be worried or concerned? Edit. He comes back from traveling tomorrow morning. I'll ask him about the caption, but will also post on my own private account for my friends and family to see. I can't see why he should have any problem with that, and if he refuses to tell me why he doesn't want me to post, then I can't see why it should stop me. Update. My boyfriend got home at 6 a.m. the next morning. I was going to let him sleep before confronting him about it, but this had been keeping me up all night, and I just needed to get an answer. The consensus on here is that he's cheating on me, or was cheating on me, and is trying to cover up his tracks. And honestly, setting my bias aside and trying to think rationally about this all, that definitely seemed like the most likely scenario in my head. I asked him why he changed the caption, and he was dismissive and tried to brush it off, initially saying something along the lines of how it wasn't a big deal, and he just thought the new wording sounded better and to let him go to sleep. I snapped and told him that made no sense, and then accused him of seeing someone else. His demeanor changed, and he suddenly became very attentive to the conversation. He vehemently denied ever cheating on or with me, and immediately gave me his phone and laptop bag and told me to look through whatever I wanted to and that he had nothing to hide. I then confronted him again about the caption and about why he didn't want to post the pregnancy announcement. I figured he'd finally explain it all to me if he really wanted to prove he wasn't cheating. I was right. He caved a lot sooner than I thought he would and started explaining to me his side of things. Basically, the story he gave me goes something like this. Shortly before I hit 13 weeks, he went out with his teammate and best friend, Jay, and some of Jay's friends who had come over to visit from their hometown. My boyfriend had met these guys a couple times before, but wasn't close to them. He was planning on telling Jay the news when everyone left and was very excited about it. Somewhere in the conversation, they stumbled across the topic of fatherhood and essentially agreed that having a kid before you're 35 would ruin your life, be a burden, etc. My boyfriend apparently spoke up about how he thought being a dad would be fun, and how he thinks he'd like to be a father in the near future. This allegedly turned into a roasting session where they would all take turns ripping into my boyfriend about how he would be an awful father that wouldn't suit him at all, that they feel sorry if he has any kids in the future. It was supposed to be some lighthearted banter between friends, poking fun at my boyfriend's intelligence and maturity, but it really upset him, and obviously he didn't end up telling Jay the news. He said that he didn't want to post about it because he was worried that Jay and his other teammates would have the same reaction to him being a father, and he didn't want to have something that he was really excited about be ruined for him. He said that the caption change was for the same reason. He was worried that even if they were happy for him, they would still find something to rip into him about once they realized I had gotten pregnant so early in the relationship. He said they wouldn't have paid enough attention to remember when we actually got together, so he changed the caption to make it more ambiguous and somewhat suggest we had been together for longer than a year at that point. It's worth noting that he had told me before today that his teammates already knew the news, and I hadn't questioned him about it as I saw no need to. I asked him why he didn't tell me this before if it was true, and he said he was embarrassed about it all and felt like he was being oversensitive to their comments since their relationship as teammates was also built on a lot of banter and ripping into each other was pretty normal for them. He also didn't want me to think he was having any doubts about the baby or the relationship because that was not the case. During this whole conversation, he was visibly upset and trying to hold back tears. He seemed very genuine with his explanation, and there are a few small details that back it up. As I mentioned, Jay was his best friend, and they would go out for drinks at least twice a week. But in the last month, he didn't see him at all outside of work and stayed home for the majority of the time when he didn't have to travel. I thought it had to do with me being pregnant and wanting to spend more time with me, but it may also just be that he's distancing himself from his friend because he was still hurt. I also remember when he came home that night, he was supposed to tell his teammate the news. He had been giddy with excitement beforehand, but when he came home, I asked him how it went, and he said something along the lines of, "Yeah, it went well," but that he was too tired to elaborate on it and wanted to go to sleep. I've looked through his phone and emails and found nothing incriminating. I can't rule out for certain any infidelity, but deep down in my gut and in my mind, I think it's safe to say that I believe him. He's asked me countless times what he can do to prove that he hasn't cheated and is intent on proving that he's faithful. He's even agreed to do a joint post on both of our Instagram accounts to announce our baby to all of his friends and followers. I guess I will never know for sure, but I'm choosing to believe my boyfriend and focus on our relationship and our baby. A. Having babies with boyfriend or girlfriend is stupid. If you're not serious enough to get married yet, you're not serious enough to be bringing kids into the world. They will grow up without a proper family, and this is both of your fault. B. If your boyfriend is really that pathetic to not stand up to his friends when they insult his ability to be a father, then those friends are 100% right. He is not man enough to be a father. He is basically a sad little boy. Professional athlete? Cool. But high-paid job is not what makes a good man or a good father. Your boyfriend is pathetic and will make a sad excuse for a father, and you should feel embarrassed to be carrying his child. Would I be the jerk for not inviting my closest friend and her husband to my wedding? I have known my best friend, Paige, and her husband, Carl, from university days. We were also flatmates for a few years. I was much closer to Paige, and my relationship with Carl could be, at best, described as distant friend. Last year, when I was on a dating app, I happened to come across Carl's profile, stating that he was looking for something casual. His profile was fairly detailed and consistent with what I knew of him. After some contemplation, I decided to share this information with Paige. I told her that I was unaware of their marriage dynamic and was in no way judging, but I did feel she should know that this information is out there. Paige told me that it was a case of impersonation and that they planned to file a complaint with the cybercrime cell. She also explained that I should never bring this up with Carl and that she would not tell him how she got this information. I agreed, and we left the matters at that. However, since this incident, things have changed quite a bit. Carl has stopped all forms of communication entirely. I'm not invited to their house for any celebrations or gatherings. Previously, I was invited frequently. When I invite them both, Carl has declined the invite, through Paige, every single time. Carl has not acknowledged any gifts I've given him lately. Recently, I decided to have an open conversation with Paige. I told her that I felt that the group dynamic had shifted quite noticeably. I also asked if it had anything to do with the dating profile. I requested clarity on the situation to help me draw my own boundaries. This is what Paige had to say. Carl still doesn't know her source of information about the dating app and that I shouldn't ever bring this up with him. I wasn't planning to. Me never being invited to their home or any of their plans, even with our common friends for over a year, even though I live 20 minutes away, is just a matter of chance. She wants all of Carl's interaction with me to happen via her because she wants it like that. She said so explicitly. I shouldn't create a fuss and that it shouldn't matter to me if someone doesn't like me, while also simultaneously saying that if Carl didn't like me, she wouldn't tell me because that's private between them. I should take whatever response Carl gives me in my stride. I should invite Carl to my wedding, but not directly, and the invite must be through her, and that I shouldn't worry if he refuses to attend. I should expect Carl to not attend, but if he does, then I should treat him like a pleasant surprise. This whole situation has become uncomfortable to me, and I'm now contemplating not inviting them both to my wedding. Would I be the jerk for not inviting my closest friend and her husband to my wedding? No, you would be the jerk if you do invite them. Why are you still keeping these people in your life? They are insane. Not the jerk. What I think is you caught Carl trying to or in the process of cheating, and were being a good friend by telling Paige. Paige has made her choice to stay with Carl. I get the feeling he knows it was you, despite Paige's claim of not revealing her source, because he probably saw your profile on the site around the same time he got caught. I wouldn't invite either of these people. There are way too many conditions on your relationship with them, and it's setting you up to fail. She's no longer your friend, and neither is her husband. It would be best to cut contact with them. I really don't appreciate being gaslighted when I try to talk to you directly. Not being invited to things for a year is obviously on purpose. I don't know what's going on, but I'm not going to be involved to try to figure it out. If you'd like to have a conversation that makes sense, let me know. Honestly though, I just ghost them. It's not worth the energy. I think Carl probably tried to spin it and say that OP was flirting with him on there, but because he rejected her, that's why she said she would tell his wife. But that's just a theory, a Karen theory. My aunt borrowed my college fund and never paid it back. I, 25 female, have always been really close to my cousin D, who's 22 male. He had a harder time growing up because his parents had some financial difficulties. He never went to bed hungry, but they didn't have much money left for luxuries. My uncle met his wife in a dance club where she was working as a dancer. No one in the family knows this, but she left that line of work when she got married. They have a business, which D works for, that struggled for years, but was one of the businesses that became vital during lockdown, so things really turned around for them, and now they're making bank. This means that a few months back, my cousin could have an amazing wedding and a 2-month-long worldwide honeymoon. I was really happy and proud for him. I grew up solidly middle class. Nothing lavish, but we did have some things that some would consider luxuries. My parents, however, were not in a position to pay for college for me, which I was chill about, and I got loans. I've been working for 2 years and I still live with my parents while I pay off the loans. I, unfortunately, couldn't get my master's because it wasn't financially viable. Last weekend was my birthday party and my cousin showed up without a gift. His wife made a comment, jokingly, about how they can't afford anything after spending all their money on their wedding. None of this bothered me because gifts are not an expectation, but my dad was visibly upset. I asked him about this and he opened a can of worms. It turned out that I used to have a healthy college fund until my mom secretly lent it to my aunt and uncle to help them save their business when I was 15. The agreement was that as soon as they were able, they would pay it back to my mom. They haven't returned a dime. They have, in the last 3 years, bought a second house, flown first class overseas twice, and paid for Dee's wedding and honeymoon. Their excuse is that I'm now done with college and their son works hard, so he deserves it more. My father got so annoyed at my aunt while relaying this to me that he decided to kick them out. While trying to calm him down, I said, "We both know she only thinks about herself and Dee. If she had any class, she wouldn't dress like she's still a certain type of dancer that she used to be." I was so preoccupied, I didn't realize that my entire family had quietly walked up with the candles lit, ready to sing to me, and they heard everything. My aunt left and has since sent my mom a message that we will never be seeing that money as it is now compensation for her pain and suffering. I didn't mean to out her and be so rude. I was dealing with a lot of emotions and shock over this, and I still am. My family doesn't know why we were so angry, so they just think I'm a jerk, and I don't want to tell them the whole story. But I'm not sure if it's excusable either way, so am I the jerk? Updates and answers. My cousin asked me to meet him alone this morning. It turned out that he knew nothing about it at all. His mom has been keeping it quiet. He took this week to consult with a lawyer to figure out how much they owed. He's also recently uncovered 2 other things. Firstly, the business has been evading tax, so he's very glad we didn't take legal action. He started the process to come clean and to pay that back. Secondly, she also borrowed money from my grandparents, a decent amount, which she never even paid back. They have since passed on, so the lawyer said that amount will form part of the estate, and will be owed between the 3 siblings. My cousin offered to sell his house to pay in full immediately if need be, but as an alternative, he and his lawyer have created a payment plan that would pay for my masters immediately. They will take over my loan repayments immediately. Once it is paid, they will continue paying my mom back monthly until the total is settled. We will obviously be going with the plan where he doesn't lose his home. Despite my cousin and his lawyers seeming fair, they've both advised me to find my own lawyer for my mom's interests, and they've offered to pay for that also. Because of the age of the loan and lack of effort to collect on my mom's side, they could legally contest it, or some of it, but my cousin won't be doing that. My cousin apologized to me profusely and said that he wouldn't ask me to keep this secret from the family, but appreciates that I kept it to myself and hopes we can continue that as long as he upholds the agreement we make. Not the jerk. You acted from emotions, and to be honest, your aunt is a jerk. Do whatever you can to get that money back. Use the text your aunt sent to sue. People like that are horrid. You could still get a master's if you wanted to. They stole it from you. Low-key think your mom is too, since she lent the money in secret initially and is probably a big reason your dad hasn't pushed for payback. You're the jerk. I hope you never get back a dime of that money. People like you who judge others like your aunt, y'all disgust me, like for real. Do you even know how it feels to be judged like that? My parents always judged me for the line of work I went into, and as a result, I went no contact with them. Even my brothers have chimed in about how my line of work will make me undesirable to marry. Joke's on them. I can make $1,000 a night on good nights because actual real men with real money think I'm pretty desirable. Do I wish I had a husband and kids and a house with a white picket fence? I mean, sure, it would be nice. But I live my life in the fast lane because it's what I chose. I'm a YOLO girl for life. Take me as I am or miss me as I was. Do better. YOLO girl for life. It's probably one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their aunt? Please let us know. You take my college fund, you can bet your backside I'm getting it back. You will come in when this warehouse opens. I used to work in a warehouse, and one day we got a new floor manager. He had this grand idea that he was going to make an already functional supply warehouse work even better. It's important to note that all of our deliveries were sent out on time, received on time, no workplace accidents other than the occasional stub toe or splinter from a wooden box. This place ran about as smoothly and efficiently as possible, but it wasn't good enough for the new manager. He made it a point to check on everyone, getting into things that weren't his business and things he didn't even know about. One of his biggest things was making sure that everyone was at work on time. We didn't have a time clock, we just wrote down when we got in and when we left. The new manager insisted that a punch card system would work much better for us, but the owners weren't willing to invest in that. So, new manager would spend every morning watching everyone come through the front door. We had maybe 50 people who worked there, so he made sure to count who came in and when. Anyone who walked in the door past 8:05 a.m. got written up. This is when he met the old guy. Old guy had been with the company pretty much since it opened. He knew everything and everyone there. Great guy and everyone liked him. On the second or third day of new manager watching everyone come in, he sees old guy walking in the front doors at 8:15. New manager rips into old guy, telling him that he was late, that it was unacceptable, and that he was getting written up. He's yelling in the middle of the warehouse where everyone can see and hear him. Old guy tries to explain, but he gets told to shut up. New manager tops this all off with an order. This warehouse opens at 8 a.m. sharp every day, 5 days a week, and I expect you at that door at 8 a.m. to begin your shift. You will be here when the warehouse opens. Is that understood? Old guy just kind of smiles, takes the paperwork, and apologizes, stating that he would be in tomorrow at 8 a.m. just as he was told. The smug look on the new manager's face was picture perfect. He was certain that he had just fixed the biggest flaw in the company. The next day at 8 a.m. sharp, old guy walked through the door and simply made sure that he was seen. Then he went off into the warehouse. That day was a nightmare. Orders backed up. Trucks were waiting on paperwork. New manager is almost in tears because of the chaos. The owner comes in and starts trying to make sense of the situation with new manager, and they track the paperwork issue back to the old guy. New manager is upset, but owner is concerned and asked old guy if everything is okay. Old guy just tries to hide his embarrassment, saying that new manager wrote him up the day before, and he was told that he had to come in at 8 a.m., not at 4 a.m. like he always did to get all the orders and paperwork ready for the day. The day before, when he walked in the door, he had been coming in from a break. New manager tried to backpedal, saying he didn't know, that it was old guy's fault. Owner knew better. After that, the new manager wasn't working at the warehouse anymore, or for the company. He went off to become a new manager for someplace else. Thankfully, old guy knew what was going to happen and had most of the paperwork done for the day already, so we weren't too behind when the smoke cleared. That's not my lawnmower. So I think this falls into this category, but it all started with me purchasing a lawnmower at a big box hardware store. In the interest of keeping them anonymous, let's just call them Rob Lowe, or Lowe's for short. I walked in one day looking to finally purchase a new mower, and I was in luck as they had a smoking deal on a display model. Unprepared to be going home with a new mower that day, I didn't bring my truck, so I simply asked if I could set it aside and come back in a little bit with my truck. I returned maybe 30 minutes later and picked up my mower and headed home. This should be the end of the story, but weirdly it isn't. Fast forward about 2 weeks later, and I get a call from Lowe's informing me that my mower is ready for pickup. Confused, I replied, "Pardon me?" So they reminded me that I ordered a mower about 2 weeks ago and it just arrived and it's awaiting pickup. Now I know most people would have seized the opportunity right there, but I decided to be a good person and I explained to the employee that no, I didn't order a mower. I bought a floor model and set it aside to pick up later, which I did. The employee thanks me, apologizes for the confusion, and says he'll update the order. Well, 1 week later they call again. Same thing, and I once again explain why it's not mine. They did this once a week for 3 weeks straight, and after the third time I tell the wife, I swear if they call me again, I'm going to go pick up my mower. At this point, now I'm just excited. I'm watching my phone, hoping they'll call, because in my mind, I've earned it at this point, and I want my free mower. Well, lo and behold, week 4 hits, and guess who calls? I'm now ready to accept my free mower, but I'm also unsure how this is going to play out. I don't know if it's paid for. I don't have a receipt. It seems like a long shot. So I simply tell the employee I'm so sorry I haven't been in yet to get it, but I got called out of town for work and just got back, and with that said, I have no idea where I put the receipt. The employee kindly replies, "Oh, no worries, it's paid in full, so all you need is a photo ID matching the name on the order." Perfect. I call the wife to let her know I'm going to pick up our new mower. She just laughs, still positive that once I get there, they won't have a mower to give me. But you'll be happy to know that I pull in, tell customer service I'm here for my mower, show them my ID, and next thing you know, some guy on a tow truck is loading a brand new, in-the-box, unassembled mower into the back of my truck, and off I go. Still have that mower today. I thought about returning the original afterwards, but I just got nervous it would somehow raise the alarms. Then I was going to sell it on Marketplace, but shortly after all this, I had bought a new house, and my best friend put in a lot of hours helping me move, and he too had been looking for a new mower, so I just gave it to him instead as a thanks for helping me. I still ended up with a brand new mower for essentially 60% off, and then was able to pay for movers with the original one, so it was still a win-win. I genuinely tried telling them it wasn't my mower, but they insisted that it was, and it would be rude to refuse their offer. I can't do this kind of thing. I know it's stealing, even if it's human error. You took something you know wasn't yours to have. Wow, some people are really upset about you stealing from a company with $40 billion? Who gives a hoot? Justify it however you need to in your own mind, but it's still theft and you know it. Bring on all the downvotes. Well, what do you think? Did OP do anything wrong or not? Please let us know. Karen demands I pay her hospital bills for having her baby. My immediate family consists of me, 27 male, my wife, who's 29, and our son, who's 8. We rely solely on my income to make ends meet, and while it is sufficient for our own needs, we don't have any extra money to spare. My wife's older sister, who's 31, is going through financial difficulties due to her poor choice in a partner. Her husband was incarcerated for theft while she was pregnant with their first kid. Out of sympathy, we assisted her with everything and we paid for her pregnancy-related expenses. However, as soon as her husband was released, she became pregnant again. Her husband is lazy and only works a few days per month, sometimes going for months without any employment. Given their situation, I ended up financially supporting her second pregnancy as well. On both occasions, we also gifted her some money. Shortly after giving birth to her second, she became pregnant again with a third baby. At this time, my family was undergoing significant adjustments in our own lives, which involved substantial expenses. During her pregnancy, she repeatedly asked for loans that she never repaid, but we anticipated this and didn't plan on asking for the money back. When the expected date of her third baby's birth arrived, we visited the hospital and provided a monetary gift as we had always done. After the baby was born, the hospital expenses had to be paid, and the sister's husband, who's 38, and his family, they looked at me when the bill arrived. I remained silent and he handed me the bill. I then explained that I couldn't cover the hospital expenses this time. I told him that we had never agreed upon it in the first place. Additionally, I pointed out that the amount we had gifted her was roughly the same as the hospital bill, so it should have covered it. The husband became angry and started speaking negatively about me. He called me a jerk for not paying. His family members also appeared angry and openly criticized both me and my wife. I responded by saying that they can't expect me to pay when we didn't even agree on it beforehand. Am I the jerk? More info. We're from a developing country where government assistance is rare and insufficient. Banking is limited, with most people relying on cash. Insurance is almost non-existent, and upfront payment is required for everything. Loans are mostly inaccessible to the general population. Private hospitals are expensive, while government hospitals are relatively more affordable but still require upfront payment. While a few hospitals allow post-operation payment, it is still required within a short time frame, usually within a few days, before leaving the premises. Not the jerk, but you should stop enabling your sister-in-law. It must be super difficult to see her in this situation, but as long as you provide financial support, she has no reason to change her situation. Not the jerk. If the husband and his family are so upset, they can open their wallets and shut their mouths. Frankly, you're a better person than me. I wouldn't have paid for any of the expenses for any of their kids. Not the jerk. The thing is, you created expectations on their part when you paid before. They assumed that you'd shell out the money like you've done in the past. That's on them. Am I the jerk for spending a lot of time in my bunker away from my family? My grandfather was an incredibly talented man who also suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, and he was convinced that war was going to end the human race at some point. So he built his own bunker and then buried the entrance because he was convinced that both the KGB and the CIA were watching him and wanted to keep the bunker a secret. Yes, he was a crazy man. My dad inherited his house but never lived there. So when I had my first kid in 2018 and we got married in 2019, my dad made me an incredibly generous offer for the house. I bought computers that were more expensive than the house. The bunker became kind of an urban legend, mostly because my old grandpa used to tell a lot of crazy stories. But out of curiosity, I went looking for it and I found the entrance. The old man really did it. So thanks to being stuck at home during the uneventful 2020 and 2021, I started remodeling the bunker to look a lot less like a fallout vault and more like my own man cave. Everyone loves it, especially the kids, my nephews and friends' kids. So the house is decorated to my wife's taste while I can do whatever I want in the bunker, play games, fix computers, set up a whole home server, work from home, etc. However, lately she's been complaining about me being distant and spending a lot of time there and less time with her and our kid. She's pregnant again, so she said she was worried, but I just promised to spend more time at the house. After a few weeks, that wasn't enough for her, and she accused me of abandoning her. I'm asking for judgment here because I'm trying to be there for my family, but this bunker feels like it's the only thing that's really mine and where I can actually have a break. But my wife has said she's going to seal the entrance, otherwise I might miss the birth and not even notice. Should I just move all of my stuff into the house and forget about it? Am I really being neglectful, or is this just her pregnancy hormones talking? To be clear, I do help with the house chores and I spend time with my son when I'm there, and I have an intercom in the bunker, so my wife can just call me if she needs anything and I'll go up there immediately. ETA. Everybody is asking me this. I spend at least 6 hours at the bunker on weekdays. I work there, so I think it's reasonable, and at least 4 hours on the weekends. But yeah, you're right, I need to make arrangements. I forgot to mention, our son goes to kindergarten, so my wife has time to work and sometimes be alone at home. ETA 2. Guys, I swear I'm taking notes. I'm just trying to understand what I should change about myself and how to talk to my wife about this. Remember that I spend at least 6 hours working, not scratching my belly. My manager allows me to log out early if I'm finished from my work for the day, but I can't log out if I've been working for less than 6 hours. I also spend time talking with my team on Slack. ETA 3. So many of you are picking up on my language. I would appreciate if you explain calmly why my choice of words is so bad, so I don't mess things up when I speak to my wife. Mini update. I had a talk with my wife. Overall, I think it went well since she told me everything, but there are so many raw emotions right now, and I was sent to sleep in the spare room. She had no mercy on me, but we needed this talk so we can have a clear path for our future together. You're the jerk. Where's your wife's bunker equivalent, and how many hours per week does she get in that space versus you in your bunker? Way to go, putting 100% of the mental load on your wife in no uncertain terms. ETA. It's absolutely valid for OP to spend his work hours in the bunker. I believe the problems of balance exist outside of the working hours. You're the jerk. Not for spending time in the bunker. That sounds cool. I would also be in there all the time. But for considering ignoring your wife, who's pretty directly telling you that you aren't spending enough time with your family and being distant. You started a family, dude. It's not all about you anymore. Info. You say you like going there so you can get a break. Does your wife get a break? How many hours daily are you spending in it? Edit. Based on replies, you're the jerk. You're spending 6 hours minimum on a weekday and then 4 hours on a weekend? You also didn't answer me about if your wife gets a break, so should I assume that she doesn't? Do you even like your wife? I'm pretty done with men claiming to be active parents when really the bare minimum is being done. And you want praise for helping out when you're home? OP, you're the jerk. Your wife is pregnant and you're relying on her to take the full mental load at home while you get away time. Do you not see how insanely selfish that is, especially in comparison to everything she's going through? Please grow up. Your wife and kids deserve a lot more than an absentee father/husband. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is his wife? Please let us know. Tell OP I'm on my way to the bunker. I'm bringing our tinfoil hats and survival seeds. They're putting fluoride in our water. Am I the jerk for counting down the days until my daughter turns 18 so I can stop being legally responsible for her? I married my wife about 2 years ago, and she has a daughter from a previous relationship. Early on during our dating period, she made it clear that her daughter has a father and she's not looking for another father for her. The ground rules were set by her that I would be an adult figure, but not a parental one. I will have no say in how she is to be brought up, and I can't punish her in any way. Considering she was 14 when her mom and I met and 15 when we married, I agreed to her rules. My thinking was that she's already too old for me to make any difference in her life, so why make it an issue? Fast forward a couple of years, and my life has been a nightmare. The girl constantly gets into trouble and has been kicked out of several schools. She lived with her father at the time. She had to move in with us so she could attend a new high school in order to graduate. She's been suspended several times at this high school, but it looks like she'll graduate on time. While living with us, she's been in 2 accidents, once where she had been drinking, and we had to remortgage our house to pay for her attorney fees and legal bills. Oh man, dang. The judge dressed us down in court for not being better parents. I'm not a legal expert at all, but from movies and shows, I know that judges can jail you for arguing, so I bit my tongue and I just took it. It was humiliating. The girl is a couple months away from being an adult, and this weekend I was out with the guys and she came up in conversation. I complained about how much money I've spent bailing her out of trouble and that I can't wait until she turns 18 so she can face her own consequences. Word got back to my wife and she blew up. I still don't think I said anything wrong, but I'm staying at a motel tonight. I want to be clear. We're not kicking her out, and considering she doesn't work, she'll be living with us for a while. I'm just waiting for the day she's an adult so I won't be yelled at by any more judges. Update. Thank you for taking the time to read my post. I wrote it while I was very angry, so I left out some details. Here's some answers to some common questions. 1. I built the house myself before I met my wife, so it's solely mine. I call it ours, not because she's on the papers, but because she's been living here and we're married. My wife doesn't really ask me to help out, but I make more than her and her ex combined. She struggles to pay for her daughter and could never afford an attorney. I know my wife would be heartbroken if her only kid went to jail, so I decided to pay for the attorney to keep my wife sane. 2. The biological dad lives several states away, and he's gone low contact with his daughter. I'm not exactly sure why, because I was never told the reason. I didn't have to go to court, but my wife had to go, so I took the day off to go and support her. When the judge ordered the parents to come to stand before him, my wife could barely walk, so I held her arm and helped her to the bench, which was why I was standing there. I've never had any dealings with the court outside of speeding tickets, and I took care of those with the clerks. Standing in front of a judge who can jail me made me terrified, and having him yell at me was the most humiliating thing I've gone through, which is the main reason why I'm so excited for this girl to turn 18, so I will no longer be called out in front of a judge. The first car she wrecked was her mother's old car that was gifted to her when I bought my wife a new car. The second car she wrecked was my old car I gave to her when I bought myself a new car. There's been no talks of getting her another car because her license has been suspended. If you're not a parental figure, why are you paying for these things at all? You're a saint for putting up with this. Not the jerk. Mom wants to have her cake and eat it too. Dude, why are you so worried about being jailed? Trust me, you're already in a prison of your own making. Not the jerk. Not the jerk, but you should probably be rethinking your whole marriage because this is not going to stop when she turns 18.
In life, sometimes you get what you accept. You get what you settle for. You have to set firm boundaries with people and hold those boundaries. Never let yourself be used, mistreated, or taken advantage of like this.
Exactly. The only reason I let Karen insult me the way she does is because I know she doesn't exist. She's just a voice inside my head that preys on my own insecurities.
Let's not get carried away now, Reddit boy. I may be a figment of your imagination, but I still have feelings.
Am I the jerk for not sharing my travel plans with my parents? I, female 28, moved back to my parents' house last year after getting out of a terrible relationship. We don't get along well. My mother disapproves of many of my life choices and relationships. Meanwhile, I've met someone else, and we've been dating for 6 months now, but I haven't shared this with my parents and don't feel comfortable doing so. We're traveling together next week, and as I live at home, I need to inform my parents that I will be leaving for a week. My mother is already grilling me regarding where I'm going and with who, and guilt-tripping me because I live at her house and she's my mother and entitled to know. She also feels she should know for my safety in case something happens to me. I don't pay rent, so I feel some accountability towards her. I plan on maintaining that I don't want to share and keeping things private. Would I be the jerk? Okay, here's some extra info. My friends know where I'm going, and so does my boyfriend's family. I've been dating this person for 6 months, but we've been coworkers in the past. This is not some random person that I don't know at all. The decisions my mother doesn't agree with are all of them, from my outfit choices, to the color I chose to dye my hair, to how I place silverware in the dishwasher, to mocking food allergies. She has unsolicited negative comments to add to just about everything, and this is why I don't feel comfortable sharing my relationship, which is great, with her. I would absolutely love to share my trip with them. I just know she'll cast a shadow to it. My parents do not accept rent from me. I do pay for my food and anything that's consumed by me. My brother, male 24, comes and goes as well and faces none of this. At the moment, he's living abroad and my parents support him. I have a great job. However, I live in a country where the average monthly salary is less than 1 month rent for a 1-bedroom apartment. The only people my age that I know that were able to move out are double-income couples. I'm saving 70% of every paycheck towards buying a house. I also budget for traveling. Again, I live somewhere flooded by tourism where housing is not affordable to locals at all. Edit 2. I've shared with my father that I will be traveling from this day to this day and that they can reach me through WhatsApp. His reaction was a simple, okay. I believe my mother is not asking for details out of concern. When I share the necessary details with her, she will probe for more and more until she has enough info to pass judgment. I'm assuming because it's happened in the past. Not the jerk. I'm traveling to this place for a week. If there's an emergency, you can leave word here. I'll see you in a week. That's all. This will be an unpopular opinion, but I think it needs to be said. You're the jerk. The thing is, I can understand why your mom is asking. They don't know you had a steady and stable relationship for months. The only thing they know is that you apparently don't have a good enough job or money to get your own place, but you're suddenly disappearing for a week to God knows where with God knows who. And you refuse to tell anyone anything about your supposed trip for no apparent reason? And you're being dodgy about it? You and we know that you'll be safe with someone that you're comfortable with. They don't. I'd be majorly concerned too, and halfway wondering if next time I hear anything, it'll be about you on the news. If you don't want parents in your business, then you need to move out. If you're not willing to move out, then you need to learn to talk to them and set your boundaries. Am I the jerk for telling my parents why I get toys from my family and friends and do not share them with the kids? I just had my 50th birthday. I got exactly 3 kinds of gifts: liquor, toys and Legos, and a new planer. This is actually perfect for me. I already own everything I need. My parents bugged me about still getting toys and bugged me more for putting them away without opening them and letting the younger kids there play with them. I said that most of the stuff I got was either collectibles or too advanced for the little ones, and that I could pull out my tub of random Legos if my parents wanted to watch them because the rest of us were enjoying the party. My parents just kept at it telling me that toys were meant for kids and that I was being immature by not sharing them. When I was out back, my mom went into my office and grabbed my new X-Wing set for the grandkids and great-grandkids to play with. My grandson came and got me because he knows my rules. He's 5. I came into the house and took the box back before they got any of the bags out. I put it in my office and I locked the door. My mom said I was being a jerk, so I just reminded her that when I was a kid, they used to give away my toys. One Christmas, they had forgotten to get a gift for someone, and this was when stores weren't open every day of the year. So they waited until after I opened my gifts. They picked one, rewrapped it, and took it with them to give it away. I was 6. It wasn't the first time, and it wasn't the last. I brought up a few more examples. They were embarrassed and left because I may have been louder than necessary. My parents have been calling me and saying that I'm a jerk for bringing up something that happened decades ago. I asked them if they never wondered why I made sure to destroy the packaging or delicate parts of toys my entire childhood. I knew they wouldn't give away damaged goods to other people. They're mad, and my sister thinks I went too far by calling them out in public. Am I the jerk? Your mom messed around and found out. Lego sets aren't cheap. They're highly collectible, and all that aside, they're yours. If you don't want someone else messing with it, that's your call to make. Mom can run on down to Walmart and buy all the Legos she wants for the kids to play with. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your parents made an issue of this. Your mom escalated it by stealing your present, and you explained perfectly why you keep your toys to yourself, as if it was any of their weird busybody business anyway, which it wasn't. If they didn't want their crappy past parenting conduct brought up, they should have left it deep in the past. If she brings it up again in public, just say loudly, "You took away my toys when I was a kid to give them to other kids, but I'll be darned if you're going to do it when I'm an adult," each and every time. Let them know that you're fine with keeping it in the past, but if they ever try this again, even one peep, you will bring it up in front of everyone again. Then do it. Am I the jerk for telling my mother I'm more important than her? My husband and I have been trying for a baby since the end of last year, and we're just now around 11 weeks along. We decided as a cute idea to do a pregnancy reveal to my mother for Mother's Day. It went well, and we made sure to tell her specifically that we were not posting or announcing anything until at least the end of the first trimester, but that we didn't want anyone else to find out until we got a chance to tell them personally. She told a friend within hours. My husband and I brushed it off because her friend wasn't part of our circle, and the odds of others finding out through her were slim to none. But we made sure to remind my mother we weren't telling anyone. By the end of the night, one of my aunts was already on the phone congratulating me. Within 24 hours, my mother had a grandma reveal Facebook post for all of her friends and family to see. She asked me through text at midnight and didn't even wait an hour to post it. We managed to get her to take the post down after it had been up for 14 hours, but some people found out about our pregnancy who we hadn't been ready to tell. My mother apologized, but always made sure to say only a few people had seen and she'd already taken it down, so it wasn't a big deal. Here's where I should say that all I ever wanted was a genuine apology for spoiling a big moment, with a promise that she wouldn't do it again and a basic understanding of why I was so upset. She couldn't figure it out and ended up becoming defensive. She started calling me a bully for trying to make her feel bad and saying I was ridiculous for holding on to all this anger over something so small. She said I was denying her by not letting her tell anyone about her soon-to-be grandmother status, and that if we hadn't wanted people to know, we shouldn't have told anyone. I snapped, and here's where I might be the jerk. I sent a very harsh message to her. I said she had the emotional maturity of a 5-year-old and a complete disregard for anyone's feelings but her own. That soon-to-be mother trumped grandmother. That she wasn't the priority here. I was, and I was tired of catering to her feelings while she stepped all over mine. I told her the only person I shouldn't have told was her, since no one else seemed to have trouble keeping the secret. I also threatened that if she wanted to continue being a part of my life, then she needed to learn how to think of other people and how her actions might affect them. My husband fully agrees with me that this has gone on long enough, and we need to set very clear boundaries and expectations. But my mother thinks my message was mean, and I should have been nicer in my delivery. My mother obviously thinks I'm a major jerk for this, but I'm not sure I even care about her opinion anymore. So, am I the jerk for telling my mother I'm more important than her? Not the jerk. I wouldn't have sent the message you did. I would have sent the message that she will no longer be told anything about your life until you're ready to share it publicly. If she can't respect your right to decide when to announce news about your life, she forfeits her right to know that news before anyone else. Am I the jerk for not refunding my friends after we canceled our trip? I, female 25, was planning a trip to Paris with my girlfriends, whom I've known for a few years, for an event at TwitchCon. We've been planning this trip since February, and we were really excited to go on this trip together. But here's the problem. A lot of them were struggling with money, and knowing this trip was going to cost a lot, I was willing to chip in more for payments, so that way they were comfortable and able to enjoy Paris without worrying about money. We found an Airbnb that was a reasonable price and was close to everything in Paris. The total price for the Airbnb was $2,567 Canadian dollars, with the first down payment being $1,300. Since it was 4 of us, the split cost would have been $326 each, but knowing my friends are struggling with money, I was trying to be nice and make them pay around $200. So that means I paid $599 Canadian dollars while they had it cheaper. Fast forward a few months, March. One of the girls backed out, but told me to keep the money since she did promise to pay, which for her was very mature and kind. I was even willing to give her money back since I know that she's struggling, but the kindness of her heart allowed me to keep it so I didn't have to spend more out of my pocket. Now we are in the present time, where another girl backed out after ghosting us for months, not letting us know if she would truly be on the trip or not. She kept saying she's waiting on her passport since it's been a few months since applying. We were understanding and just wanted to know if she's down to go so we can book our plane tickets. She made us wait for months with no update. Now that's 2 out of 4 of us not going. Knowing that I have to pay for college and the second half of the Airbnb payment back to back, I started to stress out over money. So I told the girls we should just cancel and save up for another time. I tried contacting Airbnb to see if I can get a refund of my $1,300 for them to tell me that I won't get a dime back. Now I'm down $1.3 thousand and 2 of the girls are demanding me to refund them their $200. Logically, that's not fair or right in my opinion. Since I paid more than they did, I was the one that lost the most, and for them to come at me demanding I give them their money back that I didn't even get back? I would understand if I got the refund and kept it, but them knowing I didn't get a dime back and still demanding their money has really upset me. I explained the situation for them to go, "It's not my problem." One of the girls has even threatened to take me to court over a small claim case. Right now I'm on the fence because I know I'm not in the wrong, but them manipulating me by threatening to take me to court has been making me feel like I am in the wrong. After I was being so kind and understanding of their finances, they don't even consider mine. Is it wrong to think if there is no refund, no one should get a refund? If anything, they owe me money. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You're not getting a refund from Airbnb. Therefore, they aren't getting a refund either. It's pretty simple. Not the jerk, but your friends are. Next time, do not volunteer to pay more. Instead of canceling, you can try postponing the trip on Airbnb and maybe go there with your family or a different set of friends at a much cheaper time. Worth a try. Not the jerk, or at least not quite, but you didn't handle it well. Barbie and Joan canceled out. This leaves us with 2 choices. We can simply cancel and lose our deposits, or we can still go, but it will cost this much more for each of us to cover their share. What do you think? You get buy-in and no hard feelings because they made the decision. Entitled mom steals my iPad and demands I let her kid keep it. I work at a car dealership as a receptionist, one of my duties being greeting customers when they enter. I'm a professional artist on the side, and I've been busy with some commissions lately, so since it's not busy at the dealer, I started working on my iPad mini. It's old and I'm working on upgrading, but I currently can't afford to, so I live with it despite the battery life being really short, and I have to basically keep it plugged in at all times. During my lunch, I was in the waiting area doing more work when a kid, a girl no older than 4, came up and watched me work. This happens a lot when I draw in public, and usually the kids just ask a lot of questions, but this nice girl was very quiet and just had a look of amazement, so I let her be. Her mother, the entitled mom in this story, was nearby at a salesman's desk working on purchasing a new car, which is a long and no doubt boring process. The salesman working with her walked away, which at my dealership they do very often to retrieve paperwork, talk to the sales and finance managers, etc. She looks over at me and her kid and asks, "What are you looking at?" Her kid points at my screen and says, "She's painting puppies." I was working on Twitch emotes of a streamer's dog. I sort of show my screen to entitled mom, and then she asks her kid if she wants to draw. Watch as the girl says excitedly, "Yes." I expected entitled mom to pull out a paper and pencils, or at least ask if I can get some for her too, but she just looked at me expectantly. When I realized she was waiting for me to hand her my iPad, I said, "Oh, she can't use mine, but I can get her a notepad and pens." But apparently that wasn't good enough. She sighs and says,
"Just let her draw a little bit. I'm almost done here anyway."
which I knew for a fact wasn't true. They were waiting on a bank approval for a loan, which can take anywhere between 5 to 30 minutes, and even then they'll be here longer for financing paperwork, detailing, etc. I start to explain that this is part of my work, and she scoffs, saying I'm just doodling puppies and it was selfish that I wouldn't let the nice girl doodle on my device too. Poor nice girl was just looking at her hands, looking quite embarrassed. I then pretended my lunch was over and got up to spend the rest of my lunch at my desk. I couldn't see her behind a huge truck on display, but I can hear her grumble to nice girl about who knows what. Whatever. I pretend like I didn't hear so I don't mess up this sale for my coworker. Sometime later, Nature called me and I get up to go to the restroom. I left my iPad on my seat so it would stay plugged in, and I put a notepad over it to try to cover it up somehow. My desk is a wide crescent shape with no drawers to keep my things safe, so this was the best I could do to somewhat hide it. I was in the restroom no longer than 3 minutes, but when I got back, only my charger remained. My iPad and Apple Pencil were gone. I looked over to the lady who had her large purse suspiciously in her lap now instead of on the floor beside her chair like it was before. I was panicked because a lot of my work is on that iPad that I needed. I went to my sales manager and told him the situation. He told me he would take care of it, but to be patient for now. I went back to my desk full of anxiety and my stomach doing backflips. Sales manager went to the desk where Entitled Mom was to work out the deal. They're far enough that I can hear their voices but not pinpoint what they're saying, but I did hear her eventually yell,
"How dare you! I would never steal. Do you want to lose this sale?"
I immediately got up and went over behind the lady so sales manager could see me, but she couldn't. He tells her he understands, but my iPad went missing and he wants to make sure no one currently in the building has it. That's when I remembered the Find My feature on all Apple products. My iPad was connected to the dealer's Wi-Fi, so I pulled out my iPhone and pressed play sound for my iPad. Her purse started dinging. She tried to play it off as if it's her ringtone, and sales manager stared at her as if daring her to answer it. Thing is, with the play sound feature, if I keep pressing it, it will keep pinging. I made my presence known and told her to give my iPad back. That's when she stopped playing dumb and just said,
"Just let nice girl have it. Her birthday is coming up, and I can't afford a present for her since I'm getting this car."
Sales manager said he was happy to cancel the deal so she can instead buy a birthday present for her kid and to return my iPad or he'll call the police. She practically threw my iPad at me where it hit me in the gut and took nice girl from the waiting area to leave. Poor thing looked at me with the most apologetic look on her face before leaving with her mother. Sales manager might have helped me, but he's not exactly the nicest person. From now on, I'm not allowed to bring my iPad to the dealer. I have to either leave it in my car or leave it at home. Whatever. Entitled Mom took my Apple Pencil with her since she left in a hurry, so I'm gonna stop by the Apple store after work to get a new one. But until then, I'm stuck with my pens and notepad. Edit. I got off work, and Apple Pencils cost like $120. The first generation. The one Entitled Mom took, I bought secondhand for $70. What on earth? Am I the jerk for cutting my son's college funds since he refuses to visit me? I, 38 male, have 3 kids, 18 son, 16 son, and 13 daughter. But one of them isn't my biological son, the one who's 16. I found out about this 3 years ago. It was a messy situation, so I ended up divorcing my wife and leaving. I moved to another city because I needed time to heal. I wasn't physically involved in my kids' life for 2 years, but I called them every day and talked to them. I also paid child support for the 3 of them. Here's where I know I did a terrible thing, and maybe that's why Alexander is mad at me and doesn't want to see me. When I called my kids, I only called Sophia and Raphael, who are 13 and 18, because I felt uncomfortable talking to Alexander. One day he was angry and grabbed the phone crying and said, "Don't you love me, Dad? Why are they more important to you?" I politely replied and said, "Honey, look, I love you, but I need some time to heal. I'm still your father and I'll be back soon." He knows I'm not his biological father. I talked to him through messages because I didn't feel completely comfortable doing a FaceTime. I moved back to my city last year with my new partner to settle down, and my kids, who are 13 and 18, came to visit me immediately. But Alexander didn't come, so I went to his mom to see what was going on, and I talked to him and also apologized for treating him the way I did, but he refused to come to my house and said that he only wanted to hang out with me, and we did that. When he found out my wife, he refused to come to my wedding, was pregnant, he told me not to visit him again. Then I found that his mom was seeing Alexander's biological father, so I thought that my son wanted a relationship with his biological dad instead. So even if it hurts, I respected his wishes until I found out that he rejects this guy. Raphael said that one day this guy was trying to spend time with him, but Alexander said, "Look, dude, no hard feelings, but don't try to force a fatherly role on me because you are not my dad and I already have one." So I decided to invite him again to live with me because my other two kids live with me 80% of the time and he's the only one who refuses. My daughter was born 6 days ago and he hasn't come to see his half-sister. So I called him and said that if he doesn't come to see me, I'll be cutting his college fund. He told me to buzz off and then hung up. My mom's saying that I'm being a jerk for threatening him that way. Am I the jerk? Seriously, I don't see the point of paying a college fund for a kid that doesn't even want to see me. You abandoned your son, who no doubt took this news as hard or harder than you did. You turned your back on him. Now you want him to dance like a trained monkey playing to your whims so he can have a future? You're the jerk. A very selfish jerk. Your poor, poor son. It's funny OP is upset that his son doesn't want to see him and thinks he deserves to be punished for that when he did the exact same thing and doesn't deserve to be punished. With that kind of flexible gymnastics, he might be the first person that can actually go forget himself. I told my sister-in-law I'll disown her if she gets pregnant. I, 33 female, live with my brother who's 32 and his new wife who's 34. Things have been fine to a point, and I definitely appreciate them taking me in during my time of need. That's not lost on me. I recognize they didn't have to help me, and I'm incredibly thankful that they've done that. But my sister-in-law has baby fever, and she's talking about trying to get pregnant. First of all, I know my brother had the snip after his divorce from his first wife. He would have to have the procedure reversed, and his insurance will not cover it. And to be frank, they cannot afford that. Part of why they allowed me to move in was because they're in financial trouble, and I'm contributing quite a lot of money to the bills right now. I cover probably 2/3 of all of the bills because my sister-in-law doesn't work, and my brother pays an ungodly amount of child support to his ex-wife. The financial issues can go ahead and be another point in the discussion. My sister-in-law can also barely take care of herself. She sleeps most of the day. She does not clean, she does not cook, she doesn't take care of the kids she already has. Her daughter is 6 years old, and she doesn't even interact with her unless she has to. That's a totally separate issue. I've become a live-in maid and nanny on top of working 45 or more hours a week. My sister-in-law lost custody of her other kid about 2 years ago. He's 11 and he lives with family now. I do not know why she even lost custody, but she did not fight to get him back. 2 days ago, my brother told me he has an appointment to meet with his doc to discuss the reversal so him and sister-in-law can try for a baby. I told them they were out of their minds. It got explosive, and I finally asked who was going to take care of a baby when my brother works full-time, I work full-time, and she constantly makes excuses to not even do basic things around the house, like take the dog outside. She really had the nerve to tell me,
I thought you could handle them when you get off of work, before your brother gets home, so the load is evenly distributed.
I blew up. I told her I'm not going to be a parent to another one of her kids, and that if they really do this, then I'm totally done and they're on their own. I told my brother I would always love him and help him if he needs me, but that I would never talk to sister-in-law and make sure the rest of the family disowns her too. I think I was probably the jerk for saying that the way I did. She started crying and locked herself in the bedroom. My brother is threatening to kick me out, and again, I might be the jerk for this. I told him he can't afford to kick me out, and he can't afford a replacement maid/nanny like I have been. I told our mom about what happened, and she not only thinks I'm not the jerk, but is now mad at my brother. Our dad, however, said I am the jerk because it isn't my place to say anything about my brother's decisions. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit. 1. I moved in over a year ago when I was down on my luck and unemployed. The conditions for me moving in was that I help around the house until I was back on my feet. Their financial situation changed though, and they asked me to stay, which is why I've been living with them this long. What I did not expect was to get almost 100% of the workload in the home in addition to working longer hours than my brother. We've had multiple conversations about how I felt it was unfair that I do so much, and my sister-in-law said they helped me, so I'm obligated to help now. Had I known this would be thrown in my face, I would have rather been homeless. 2. I chose to be child-free. But I love my stepniece, and leaving at this point would hurt her the most. The authorities have been called many times, not even by myself, but their friends and my brother's ex-wife, because they feel my niece was being neglected. My ex-sister-in-law specifically said mistreatment, and that she had even witnessed it in the past. My niece is definitely troubled. She has a therapist. I'm really limited on what I can do when people who are supposed to help just won't. 3. I'm still reading the comments. I will reply as I can. I was fully prepared going into this story to say you were the jerk, but after reading it, not the jerk. Your dad's right. It shouldn't be your business, but they made it that way because they're including you in their childcare plans. If she wants another kid so bad, why not work at getting the kid she already has and lost custody of back? You need to get out of this living situation and detangle yourself from them. Before your brother can kick you out, find yourself a tiny apartment so you can watch the inevitable disaster from a safe distance. Not the jerk, but get out now. You're already paying and working far too much for this household, and you're enabling a lazy parent. Without you, their dumb marriage will hopefully implode before he gets his vasectomy reversed. OP. I've decided I'm going to move. I have a coworker who's moving at the end of July, and the landlord there is looking for a new tenant. I make more than enough right now, so she's putting me in contact with him. It's a small studio apartment, but it's a very short commute. I don't know how to tell my brother I'm leaving because even though I am really mad still, he's my family, and I know moving will put him in a rough spot. I'm also worried about my stepniece, so I'm figuring out what I can do about that. People have recommended talking to a mandated reporter and recording any mistreatment, so I think that's what I'm going to do. To the people asking what my brother sees in her, truthfully, I'm not sure. I suspect his pride is in the way, due to him jumping into a new marriage right after his divorce, and he doesn't want to admit that it did not go as planned. Someone else said it might be a Band-Aid baby, and that sounds accurate enough. My brother swears that he's happy, but I've never seen him this miserable before. He's always upset about the financial situation, and if anything, sister-in-law makes it so much worse because she's always buying stuff. She has him very far in debt, and they eat fast food almost all the time because they don't like to cook. As to what sister-in-law does all day, when I say nothing, I really mean nothing. She has no hobbies, she just sits on her phone all day. She's definitely mentally ill, but she lies about a lot, so I don't know what's true and what isn't. Not the jerk. There's nothing scarier than a mother who has lost custody of one of her kids getting pregnant with another. Nope, nope, nope. Malicious compliance by all the students caused the whole school to reek. This is an old story I had forgotten about until just now. Ah, the nostalgia. It happened when I was in middle school, about 2010. A bit of context. I live in an old rural town, not in the US. The only middle school in this town used to be a nursery, the kind where plants and trees are grown or sold, not a medical nursery. Most of the trees weren't cut down when the place became a school, and a few of them were fruit trees. 3 or 4 of them were mango trees. Us kids loved taking them home by the bunches to enjoy with our families or eating them during lunch and breaks. Occasionally, some kids would try throwing rocks or sticks at the tree branches to make some mangoes fall. One of the teachers didn't like this. Understandably, throwing rocks could be dangerous, but nobody was throwing them at each other, and they were careful looking around for any people passing by so as to not hurt anyone. The most logical thing to do would have been to forbid students from throwing things at trees, but instead, the school passed a rule that any student caught picking up mangoes, whether they were on the floor or trying to get them from the trees, would get in trouble or even face suspension. We all thought it was a dumb idea, but me and a few other students could smell the eventual disaster from a mile away. So nobody protested and everyone at school agreed to comply, even the kids who were known to be rebellious. Well, about a month or so later, the whole school was absolutely stinking of rotten mangoes. And for those of you who don't know, mango season usually peaks during early spring and late summer. Plus, in the state we're in, rainy season hits in the summer. So imagine old rotting mangoes and muddy water puddles that sits for days at a time. And the summer heat, not a good combination of smells. The teachers by that point told us that if we see a mango in good condition that can be eaten, we could pick it up. But we couldn't possibly break the new rule that was imposed by a respectable teacher. We must obey like the good students we are. The school had to pay a cleanup crew to dump all of the rubbish, and some of the parents, my mom included, complained about the wastefulness of perfectly edible fruit. The next school year, we were all enjoying delicious mangonadas, which is a mango-flavored ice pop with a spicy sweet sauce, under the lovely shade and those good old summer breezes. These ice pops were made and sold by a classmate. The teacher that had originally started the complaints was a loyal customer. The time my Christian school didn't like my t-shirt. So I just remembered this after talking about high school with a friend, and it jogged my memory. So I went to a Christian high school. Of course, they accepted people of every faith. They weren't that kind of Christian school you sometimes hear about. Well, one day when I was in year 9, maybe 10, I'm in the UK by the way, so ages 13 to 15, we got invited to go on a Christian retreat, which is basically a bunch of students who signed up for it, going to a building like a big sleepover, going hiking, obviously talking about religion, and generally having a good time. Now, something to note, I was, and quite frankly still am, an emo, so I was listening to a lot of different bands and singers that wouldn't be considered Christian. Anyway, me and about 15 other students signed up for this retreat. Most of us weren't religious, but it was a good time to get away from things. It was only a couple hours away from our school, but the mountains and greenery made it so peaceful. Well, on the first day there, we got asked to come into the hall, introduce ourselves, and talk about what was going on. Then they decided to have a little fun. I want us to go around and talk about our t-shirts and share why we wore them, said one of the Christian ladies. No one put their hand up to volunteer, so she started picking on people. She picked one guy who had a generic t-shirt on, and he was reluctant to say anything. Come on now, talk about why you wore your t-shirt and what it means to you. You've got to do it. It's a fun little icebreaker. The boy awkwardly said that he wore it because he liked the band and the color that it was. Then she saw my friendly face. Not kidding. Even though I was an emo, I was super smiley. She said, "Oh, you. Would you like to tell us what's on your t-shirt and why you wore it? Come on, show us all how it's done." Oh well, she did ask for it. I'm wearing a band t-shirt because I like listening to their music. And what does that writing say? Going to heck? Silence. Well, needless to say, we did not continue playing that icebreaker game, and from then on, they didn't really like me. Still had some fun though. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my wife and her friend anymore over what my wife calls a miscommunication? Fake names. My wife, Emily, has a longtime friend, Leslie, who has recently become a single mother. Leslie does not have a working vehicle at the moment and is working 2 jobs, so Emily took it upon herself to help Leslie out as much as she can. Emily had started asking me to help out as well in driving Leslie and her kids around, taking them to school and appointments, taking Leslie to the grocery store, etc., whenever Emily or someone else couldn't. I agreed since it made my wife happy, and I understand the kind of situation Leslie is in. Helping has turned into Emily inviting Leslie and her kids over often, or organizing trips that they would like, such as camping or fishing. A few times, my wife was unable to attend these get-togethers she organized due to work and insisted they still take place, leaving me to entertain Leslie and her kids on my own. Since I've known of Leslie my entire relationship with my wife, I didn't think too much about this. The times that it has been me left with her or sent in Emily's stead to shuttle Leslie around, I've made normal small talk with her and the kids. Recently, Leslie's kids were going to be away for a weekend, so Emily wanted to have Leslie over for dinner and some movies. She asked me to text Leslie to ask her over, and when I did, Leslie replied with, "Just as friends, right? I'm not interested in being anyone's girlfriend." I thought that response was out of left field, so I asked her why she'd even say that, and her response was pretty much, "No guy would be asking me and my kids how we're doing or helping me out unless he wanted something in return." I told Leslie it wasn't anything like that, and then showed my wife the conversation and informed her I would be stepping back from helping her with anything involving Leslie, and to leave me out of any future plans. I also offered to show her the rest of my phone and anything else. Emily believed me, but she still talked to Leslie about it to see what had given her that impression, and accordingly, she gave Emily the same answer. A few days later, Leslie apologized to Emily and told her that her emotions and mine were just all over because of a down day. That's fine, but I'm still not willing to help her or my wife out anymore, as I had been, because I don't want any repeats or accusations hurled at me when I was just helping as my wife had asked. Emily thinks I'm overreacting and should just brush it off because it was just a silly miscommunication that she had had on a bad day. Am I the jerk? Additional info. The text I sent Leslie about the night was, "Emily wants to know if you'd like to come over for dinner and some movies on Saturday." That's why her response was so out of left field. I sent the text because Emily was busy on her phone and wanted to know ASAP so we could make our weekend plans. Not the jerk. Cringe friend. Could have gone a lot worse. Do not help her unless your wife is around. Ew, Leslie. Her mentality that men and women can't be friends without ulterior motives is disgustingly gross on its own, much less about her friend who had been helping her out's husband. Not the jerk. I noticed she didn't apologize to you. She accused you of trying to cheat on your wife. That is no small thing to overlook. Not the jerk. She's ruined a good thing for herself that your kindness was offering. Not the jerk. To be fair, your wife shouldn't have put you in those positions to begin with. Her friend saying what she did makes me concerned that she was developing feelings for you, which would be completely understandable as she's in a vulnerable place and you were stepping up to help her. If it was me, I'd steer clear and let them do their own thing. Why does everyone think this girl was looking for trouble? She was setting boundaries, which is what I would have been doing as well. I would have thought it totally bizarre that my girlfriend's husband was just showing up on his own to do stuff with me. I think the wife has gone completely overboard and put the husband and friend in an awkward situation. She's probably relieved he stopped showing up. There is being supportive, and then there's getting way too involved. As the husband, I would have refused to be volunteered to do all of that stuff. I'd say Leslie is testing the waters to see if a bit of fun with her friend's husband is actually a possibility. Not the jerk. Stay away. Well, what do you think? Is Leslie a jerk or not? Please let us know.
I know my opinion will be unpopular, but I think she totally had the right to make sure that he wasn't looking for anything more with her, but I don't know, maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I don't feel like she was accusing him of anything. She was just making sure that he wasn't trying to, bow chicka wow wow.
Pretty much. But to be honest, if I had been homeboy, I would have been like, I can keep a secret if you can.
Am I the jerk for taking away my daughter's driving privileges after finding out she's using 2 feet? I'm 37, female, and my daughter, who's 16, is in the process of navigating the roads as a new driver. She began studying for and got her permit when she was 15 and had since been receiving driving lessons from my ex-husband, who's 40. She passed her driving test, written and physical portion, and is an outstanding student, so my ex and I decided to gift her a car on her 16th birthday after receiving her license. Growing up, my dad was the one who taught me and my siblings how to ride a bike and later how to drive. It's a fond memory I have of him, so I decided to let her father handle the driving lessons and teaching business, so they could have that as well. Apparently, during these lessons, my daughter started off by using both of her feet, right foot for the gas, left for the brake. She continued to drive this way for a while, even passing her test this way. Apparently, when my ex-husband found out about this, he brought it up to her and asked her to correct it, but she argued that she had been driving this way since she started and that reverting to the normal way would be potentially dangerous, and that she is uncomfortable doing so. So my ex-husband just dropped it. I, however, was extremely concerned when I found this out, via her dad during casual conversation. I asked him if he thought this was appropriate, and he said he saw nothing wrong and that she was a good driver. I disagreed and told him this was unsafe and that I would be having a chat with our daughter once she arrived home from school. She did. I asked her to sit down, and I tried to explain to her the dangers of what she's doing, wear and tear on the brakes, potentially pressing the wrong pedal in a split-second emergency situation, not to mention the higher chance of having your foot on the brake the entire time, which is not only annoying to other drivers, with them not being able to know whether you're actually braking or not, and again, dangerous. I asked her to please take these points into consideration and change her method of driving, to which she argued the only real danger would be forcing her to switch to using only one foot for both pedals after driving for this way for so long. I told her she has only been driving for about a year more or less, and the way she learned with 2, she could learn with 1, to which she flat out refused. After our conversation and her refusal, I took her keys, and I told her I would be taking her to school from now on, and wherever else she needs to go as well. She was upset and called her dad, who told her to tell me that I'm the jerk and I'm being controlling. He reminded me that her driving record is fine the way she's driving thus far, but it's only been a year, and she will resent me for this. So, am I the jerk? I don't want to come off as controlling, and I definitely don't want my daughter to resent me over this. I'm genuinely concerned for her safety over this, and I'm not sure what to do now. Edit to add, the car is an automatic. I'm certain that if the person she took her driving test with knew she was driving this way, she wouldn't have passed it, at least not in my area. I had a friend drive like that and got told to fix their feet before the car even started moving. End of story, not the jerk. This is an idiotic way of driving. Edit. Seems like lots of other people have similar experiences, and even though this isn't a law, it seems pretty obviously frowned upon. Given that you try to talk to her, you're not the jerk. Clearly this needs more conversation though. Continue talking, calmly and respectfully, But yeah, that's super dangerous. Am I the jerk for telling one of my good friends I wouldn't attend his wedding because my wife wasn't invited? My best friend from college, male 26, and I, male 25, are both having weddings this year, his in June and mine in November. Mine is really more of just a party because I married my wife at the courthouse about a year ago because we didn't want to wait until we could afford the party to commit to each other. He invited me to his wedding, but not my wife. I waited until his deadline for RSVPs and then told him I wouldn't attend because my wife and I go to events together, or we don't go because she's the woman behind me as I am the man behind her, and we are effectively a unit. I know I shouldn't have waited, but I wanted to try and push off an uncomfortable conversation. He blew up on me and accused me of always choosing others over him and not being a decent friend or caring about him at all. He said that he didn't invite my wife because there physically wasn't enough space at the venue and that I wasn't the only one affected by this. He went on to essentially say that I need to not be a codependent and that he wasn't asking me to go on a 6-month deployment for my family, but that I needed to be there for him to be a good friend. I eventually caved because he made me feel bad, and I said I'd go without my wife. Also after I talked to my wife about it. But my thought now is that if you plan a wedding at a physically small space, it's okay to invite just me. Just by the same token, don't be upset when I decline because you made your bed type of deal. It's also worth noting I had a similar constraint on my wedding, but cut 2 family members to allow both he and his wife to have seats at my wedding. Context: I'm a government controls engineer working on a very expensive, to the tune of higher-ups giving updates to Congress, very time-consuming project currently. I'm not at the top of the chain, but I've been able to advance my career very quickly, so I'm in a position of responsibility. I missed his bachelor party because I needed to travel for a work meeting. He's very much still the Chad bro, let's get drunk type, and I'm not anymore. I have a wife. I have 2 kids who are the absolute most important thing to me. I don't respond to his texts nearly as often or as quickly, and I don't endlessly play video games with our old group like I used to. So I think it's fair for him to feel he's not as important, because while I love him, he also just isn't compared to my career, but most of all, my family. Am I the jerk for saying I wouldn't go, and now thinking I should take back my offer to go after having time to think about it? Edit. I know I'm preachy, so I'll be brief. My wife and I are not attached at the hip. To clarify, weddings, funerals, graduations, work dinners, we go to together. Formal events? If it's girls' night or boys' night level stuff, we have no problem being apart. I also did not send in an RSVP. I let the automatic system do it for me. The website read, RSVP here. No submission will be counted as will not attend at deadline. In my opinion, that reflects very poorly on me in an effort to be fair. Edit. I'm not going to his wedding and he's not going to mine. The friendship has been terminated. Not for just this, but an accumulation of reasons. People asked why I waited to respond knowing it was wrong. I was weak, essentially, and events from our history made me procrastinate because I knew in any event it wouldn't be a good conversation. Not an excuse, and I know I messed up there. I think this was an everyone sucks here, even with all the not the jerks, and I was called on behaviors I have that aren't good, that I now recognize and I agree with. Not the jerk. He's allowed to not invite your wife, but you are also allowed to choose not to go without her. Your friends need to live with the consequences of his actions.
You know, sometimes friends cause you way more trouble than they're worth.
How my wife ruined her mom's Mother's Day by treating her like a mom. My mother-in-law is an annoying person to say it in the nicest way. She has extremely low self-worth, and she compensates by forcing the world to go around her. As family who interact with her regularly, we're forced to treat her like a queen, every day, every minute. If we don't, then there will be drama. All the way from pouting, going to her room, fainting, leaving the house to go full-blown breakdown, including saying, "Why should I live on this planet anymore if no one cares about me?" Yeah, to see an old lady say something like this because we don't give her a few minutes of attention is a bizarre thing to witness. So it's exhausting to be around her, but what else can my wife and sister-in-law do? She is their mom, and they both try their darn best to make her feel special. But they would also like to interact with her as their mom too, not just as some out-of-touch royalty. They would like to crack jokes, chat about general things, and share their problems, not having to be constantly worried what statement might tick her off. When they were kids in her orbit, things were fine as she controlled them, and that made her feel that she was the center of attention. Now they're married and have families of their own, and because she's not the anchor of the family, she started becoming more and more demeaning that we perform some elaborate rituals to make her feel special. That's extremely exhausting. So on to the actual event itself. Mother-in-law and father-in-law have traveled to our country and are staying with us for a short time to help with the kids, as we all live halfway across the globe. My wife planned an elaborate Mother's Day event centered around mother-in-law, even though she herself is a mom too. This included lunch in a popular ethnic cuisine restaurant. By the way, had she not planned it herself, there will be a snarky comment at the end of the day saying,
Seems you don't care about your mom enough to plan something for me. I was waiting the whole day for you to do something.
Anyway, morning went uneventful as we had been pampering the grown-up toddler and mother-in-law was quite jubilant. We go to the restaurant and I and our eldest one go in to set up the table as my wife is bringing the others, mother-in-law, father-in-law, and our little one. My 2-year-old, the real toddler, decides to throw a tantrum for toddler reasons, but then mother-in-law sees this beautiful garden in front of the restaurant and wants my wife to take her pic. Mother-in-law doesn't care about anything and forces my wife to take several pics as my wife is holding a crying, fussing, and kicking toddler in her hip. Having basked in the glory of being in the center of attention, mother-in-law is satisfied enough. They all come inside. My wife is ticked from the events, but tries her best to be cheerful. Waiter comes in to take the order, and right then mother-in-law decides to go to the restroom. My wife asks her to order before going, as the kids will get hangry if we wait too long. Big mistake my wife did was she asked in a normal tone, a regular conversational tone, instead of a pleading or a pleasing pampering tone. How dare we order her royalty on what to do? That was strike one. As me and my wife are looking at the bazillion choices and trying to order for our kids, ourselves, our spice level, etc., we got absorbed into ordering without paying attention to the most important person. Mother-in-law wasn't the center of attention for 2 full minutes. How dare we? That's strike 2. We don't notice that and ask her what she wants. She asks if they have a particular ethnic dish, which is a regular staple we have almost every day at home, like a grilled cheese. That too in an indifferent, meek tone. She was indirectly implying that she's just a nobody because of strikes 1 and 2, so she's ordering some peasant food. That was our cue to realize our mistake and beg her forgiveness and bring the world back into alignment before things go downhill. We fail to notice that change in tone, which is strike 3. Instead, my wife suggests, "Mom, we have that almost every day at home, so why don't you?" Mother-in-law cuts her off, saying,
I know that. Are you saying I don't know that?
and storms off to the restroom. Wow, she sounds exhausting. We're all figuring out what just happened and we finish ordering. Mother-in-law comes back and unloads onto my wife about how she just disrespected her. We brought her to this country, and even since then, my wife has made it her mission to do nothing but continuously humiliate her, and mother-in-law starts crying. I quickly realized what had conspired, but my innocent wife, whose heart is only filled with love and not such evil games, doesn't realize drama my mother-in-law wants. Instead, she's trying to understand how suggesting that the dish is a regular staple at home is humiliating, and mother-in-law goes,
You are implying I'm dumb and don't even know this. You have ruined my Mother's Day. All daughters do special things on the Mother's Day, and here you are ruining mine.
And a few other ridiculous quotes. My wife says again and again, that's just a regular thing to say to your mom. But mother-in-law is adamant that my wife humiliated her by implying she's dumb for not knowing it's a staple dish we regularly eat at home, and storms off to sit outside. Seriously, that was the entire discussion for full 5 minutes. It was extremely bizarre to see a 60-year-old woman throwing a tantrum and accusing her daughter because she said it's a regular staple we eat at home. Normally, we would run after her, apologize, and beg her to come back, and keep apologizing throughout the lunch, which is what she wanted after 3 strikes. But this time, we were so over this BS, having been through similar things so many times. We just sat and ate in peace without an extra side of drama. But my wife was heartbroken. She does all this planning, wanted to be a good daughter, wanted her mom to feel special, and in the end has ruined her Mother's Day by talking to her mom as a mom and not as a royalty? So a 60-year-old woman started crying in the middle of a lunch rush in a popular restaurant, all because we didn't give her attention for 5 minutes, while we were busy ordering food for our kids. There are hundreds of such stories, but this is one of the clearest. What the heck just happened? My daughter demands I raise her babies, but I want to retire in peace. I, 58 female, and my husband, Rob, who's 61, have 2 kids, Erica, who's 35, and Mike, who's 30. Both kids are married, but Erica and her husband, Steve, who's 38, live nearby us, and this issue concerns them. They work full-time and they have 2 kids, who are 5 and 4 years old, 5 years ago, my daughter asked my husband and me if we would be willing to become their full-time childcare so she could continue to work and afford their comfortable life. We agreed, but we didn't discuss much more than watching the baby and their expectations. I was a teacher and retired 2 years before I could take my pension, so my husband continued to work, and we made a few sacrifices like vacations and adding to our savings, but we were able to make it work so I could take my full pension at 55 and my husband retired a year later. Our arrangement worked and we enjoyed having the kids, except by year 3, 2020, we started to feel like they were taking advantage of our help. In 2020, during the lockdown, they both were working from home. They expected us to keep the kids all day, and we wanted to split time with them since their preschool and daycare was closed. We settled on 2 with them and 3 with us, and my son-in-law complained about it pretty much every day. Things got better when the kids were able to go back to school. Fast forward to year 4, 2021, we have a bit of a blow-up over kindergarten. My daughter did not want her 5-year-old son to start school in the unknown, but I insisted that he needed to go because I needed the break. I also asked for her 4-year-old to spend more time at the preschool and daycare program. Son-in-law complained about the cost, but I pushed anyway. They relented, and then this past spring, son-in-law pushed for us to take the kids for a week so they could go on a vacation. We said they had to take the kids, and he said, "We can't afford it." No one went on vacation. Maybe that's too much background, but I feel like the context is important for what I said. My daughter and I were casually having a conversation the other day, and she mentions that she had a doctor's appointment and tests. I asked if everything was okay, and she said Steve and her were trying for baby number 3. I asked her what her childcare plan was, and she looked at me like I was crazy and said us. I said that it would have been nice if she had told me this before trying for another baby. She said it's none of my business. I said it is if I'm providing 5 more years of babysitting. I then told her that we were not a viable childcare option for a new baby and begged her to reconsider. Her 4-year-old is going off to kindergarten. We feel like we're getting our days back to some extent and refuse to start all over again with an infant. Erica said we are making her choose between her dream of having 3 kids and financial stability. I argued that she has 2 beautiful kids already and they are financially stable. They shouldn't ruin that with another baby. I might be the jerk because Erica feels like we should have told her sooner. I feel like I'm not because I never agreed to a lifetime of raising their kids. Edit. We will continue to watch our 2 grandkids after school and during the summer as this is what we have agreed to and we enjoy it. School provides a nice break for us and then we do fun things with the kids in the summer. We just don't want to start over again with another baby. Edit 2. Just to add a bit more context, and I want to answer some of the comments I'm seeing a lot. We are not paid and we didn't ask to be. I retired early, but would have stayed longer if we didn't watch our grandkids. I probably would have put in another 5 years or so because I loved my job, so putting those 5 years into helping my daughter and grandkids wasn't a problem. My husband and I did a good job of preparing for retirement and felt that we could swing it. We do take time for ourselves. We require 5 weeks a year at a minimum to travel, visit our son or other family. We settled on 5 because our daughter gets 3 weeks of vacation a year and son-in-law gets 2. At first, son-in-law complained that him and my daughter would never get a vacation together. We said that they would just simply have to arrange other care options if they want time together, so we could still have our 5 weeks. We do hold them to this, and one time in the past 5 years, his parents came down to stay with them and watch the kids during that week we were away. In terms of telling her to not have another baby, I was trying to make her see everything she does have and to focus less on what she doesn't have. Lastly, my daughter and son-in-law have plenty of money and are responsible when it comes to costs. If anything, my son-in-law is cheap, so I think their version of stability and many others would be very different. Karen lets her cat roam the neighborhood, so I had him neutered. I run a TNR program for feral cats. Nonprofit, I catch all cats, then I get them the medical attention that they need myself out of my own pocket. I love helping them. A lot of the cats are not able to be rehomed, so I fix them and release them. Get them their shots and hope for the best. I'm not a large-scale operation. Recently, I was called to an area overrun with orange cats. They were everywhere, and I mostly ended up handing it over to the professionals. I did, however, manage to grab 3 very sweet cats. 2 were terrified, skinny, looked like they had seen a few fights, but were overall friendly. The 3rd one was a little gent. He was tubby, well-groomed, fish-patterned collar, the works. My plan was to find his parents and drop him off with a warning to keep him in due to the large amount of traps being set. Then the little guy sprayed the inside of my card to the max. So apparently he wasn't fixed. I couldn't really tell, long hair, and assumed he was, so I left my covers off. Big mistake. I debated taking him home or taking him to get neutered with the rest. He was an indoor/outdoor cat, indicated by his collar tag, and with so many strays, I'm certain some were carrying his genetics. Ultimately, I took him with me and got him neutered. No chip, so I called the number on his tag and informed them where their cat was and gave them time slots to pick him up or to have him dropped off. The owners went ballistic. They were going off on me and came to collect their cat not 20 minutes later. They called me a cat thief, blamed me for their kid having nightmares, scared over their cat going missing. I tried to explain that he needed to be fixed if he was going to be outside, but they didn't want to know. They said I should have called immediately, regardless. I spoke to my rescue friend who said I was in the wrong. Even though we know we're technically in the right, we didn't have the legal ground to do that, and it wasn't my decision to make. I did apologize, but I have blocked their numbers. The mom is flaming me on Facebook and DMing people I know. I have a duty to take care of stray cats. Me knowing an unneutered male was roaming free and not doing anything about it was a concern for said stray cats. Things are still tense between my rescue buddy and I don't completely disagree. I know I crossed a line, even if it was for the greater good. People are finding out and taking sides, so I'm not sure who to really believe was right here. So, am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You did steal their cat, and you made a superbly arrogant decision to have him neutered without the owner's permission. You can judge them all you want for letting their cat outside, but the first thing you should have done was to call the cat's owners and ask, "Hey, I found your cat. Did you know he was outside?" That's the basic due diligence right here. How a vet decided to neuter the cat means you must have taken off the collar and obscured the owner's information, or they would not have done it without your permission. You just made yourself very actionable legally. You don't know if they were planning to breed the cat and he just happened to get out. OP. I spoke to my vet. She's a TNR vet. She neuters and moves on. There was no address on the collar, so my vet said it was fine. I don't know if she tried to call the owners or not though. I personally don't condone the breeding of cats when we have so many dying, literally for homes. Not 3 weeks ago, I dropped off at least 30 kittens and a couple pregnant mamas at a rescue. Maybe 10 will be adopted. The rest will be put down. It's horrible. I don't really care if they had plans to breed, truthfully. Well, then you shouldn't care if they sue you, I guess, since you feel you're completely in the right and justified, right? I understand that the cat overpopulation problem is horrible. I'm a cat owner myself. My problem is that you stole someone else's pet. There is zero justification for that. And if the vet is that careless, they're leaving themselves open to being sued as well. You should have the burden of calling the owner before deciding to permanently alter their pet. Everyone sucks here. The owners for letting an intact pet outside unsupervised to breed, and you for having a surgical medical procedure done to an animal that you knew had owners without the owner's permission. Regardless of the morality of allowing pets to contribute to the stray population, for which the owner is a jerk, making medical decisions for someone else's pet makes you a massive jerk. Everyone sucks. A free-roaming cat is a feral cat. You're not the jerk. Thank you for your service. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the cat's owners? Please let us know.
I know we're gonna lose some subscribers for this, but it needs to be said. If you're stupid enough to let your unneutered cat roam the neighborhood and have kittens everywhere that are all gonna be strays, you don't even deserve to have a pet. Don't add me.
Am I the jerk for cooking while my roommate's girlfriend was here and offering her some? I, 21 male, am from the South. I grew up in New Orleans in Texas. My mom runs a catering business and the majority of clients were either at home in Louisiana or in Texas. I add this to say that I grew up cooking and helping my mom cook for the business. I was frying chicken and catfish when I could reach the stove and making gumbo and buttermilk biscuits at a very young age. I'm currently in culinary school right now. I've lived in a rented house on the East Coast with my roommate, 22 male, for a year and a half. He's not a friend or anything, we just linked up because we both needed roommates in the area. He's good to live with and we watch shows and movies together. We hang out and go out for drinks sometimes. I always make friends easy because of being from the South and doing customer service related things when I was a kid. I know how to talk and charm and listen to folks despite being naturally more of an introverted person. My roommate has been seeing his girlfriend, who's 20, for 6 months. I've met her before and I've seen her in passing. Roommate and his girlfriend had a 2-week break from school things. She still lives at her parents', so she decided to stay here the whole 2 weeks. I was just doing things as I normally would. It got weird at first when I was about to go mow the lawn and the roommate stopped me and said he wanted to mow. I usually always mow. A couple of days later, I was outside washing my car. I asked both of them if they wanted to do theirs. She looked like she was going to agree, but he looked at her angrily, so they declined. I cook pretty frequently at home as well, and usually let my roommate have some. So anytime I'd make some, I would say that they could have some, and this would get him upset. Weeks prior, when she was here and we were all talking, she mentioned this specific kind of cheesecake that she really likes. So I made it and sent out a group text that everyone could have some. My roommate got upset. I don't see anything as overstepping a boundary, as this is how I treat him and all of our guests. The other day, he told me how annoying it was to hear his girlfriend talk about how good your roommate's fresh-baked bread is. I'm not trying to make him look bad or anything. This is simply how I was raised. If I bake 2 loaves of bread, I'm gonna leave it out for the rest of the house to eat. Edit. The cheesecake is just common courtesy type thing to me. When his parents came over, I made pound cake because they like it. If a guest is coming, you get or make what they like. Nothing odd about picking up their favorite chips or making some tea when guests arrive, just how I was raised. Edit. Wow, this is blown up. Just want to say we generally have a good roommate relationship. We're not best friends, but it's friendly enough. The only change has been when his girlfriend is here. So, no, I'm not looking for new roommates to be adopted or to move out, but thanks. Here's some more things that upset him. I went to the grocery store and asked if anyone needed anything. I was frying chicken and I offered the first and best pieces to them straight out of the oil. I changed the oil to my own car. I used a smoker in the backyard to make brisket. I grill and smoke in the backyard and needed a piece of wood cut in a certain way to hold something up. I cut and nailed some wood together in the garage. Feels like I can't even exist while she's here. Update. A lot of people wanted an update. I wanted to see my roommate in a more positive light. I tend to try to see the best in people, but reading the replies and his recent actions have really opened my eyes. I never took him too seriously because he's a pretty harmless little guy in my perspective. There is a big difference in how he lashes out at me compared to his girlfriend. He's gotten big tough with me in text form, but only mildly upset when I see him in person. I have taken a step back and looked at anything I could have done to provoke him, not excusing his behavior. And while I don't believe I'm in the wrong for being hospitable and a hosting guest, if a 75-year-old man were staying with us, I would treat him the same as I've treated his girlfriend. I do realize that he's not from the South. I was told by others in school that women outside the South don't enjoy being called ma'am. However, I've never seen a lady get angry if I did call her ma'am up here. I call women of all ages dear or darling, and I could see how that could be seen as flirtatious, even though it's just part of how I speak. Now that he knows I've seen him in his true form, he doesn't even try to act the way he did before. I sent his girlfriend screenshots of the texts he sent and told her the things that he said. I'm not sure if she's leaving or staying, but I've let her know and told her to let me know if she needs any help. I don't plan on moving anytime soon, as I enjoy having room for a grill and a smoker and a garage. He told me he's looking for new places to live and will potentially go back to his parents. I make enough working at a restaurant to afford the rent alone. I would like more going into savings, but I'm not worried financially for the time being. I'm flattered and overwhelmed by all the positive replies. About 100 of you told me to thank my mom, so I sure will. I grew up working in hospitality with my mom and siblings. My dad is the one that instilled respect in me. He never felt emasculated, even when my mom's business ended up making more than he does. They just save their money from their jobs and go on vacation a lot. Final edit. I tend to see the good and the best in people, so I wasn't seeing him as being very insecure and was trying to look at this in a more positive light. But he just texted me and said that I greet his girlfriend in too kind of a way, and it's annoying that I say, "Be safe," when she leaves the house. I say this to him and everyone when they tell me that they're going somewhere. He sent me a long text detailing it's bad that I look her in the eyes when she's talking to me. Maybe it's time for a new roommate. Not the jerk. You are raising a bar he doesn't want raised by getting things done. He wants to pretend he's a better partner than he is. He also doesn't want you to highlight things he isn't interested in doing. In a way, you are unintentionally showing that he isn't the best partner material around. Keep doing as you are. He's being ridiculous. So he's okay with you feeding him, but has a problem when you offer to feed his girlfriend who just happens to be in the house? It's not like you only cook when she's there. Why? Is he afraid you're gonna steal her with food? Is he afraid she's only hanging out with him because you feed her? Ask roommate what the problem is and then stop doing what he doesn't like. If that means not feeding her, then stop feeding him too. You sound like a great roommate. You mow and offer to wash their cars? Who does that? You're like Southern hospitality supersized. Would I be the jerk to expect my husband to accommodate a post-pregnancy confinement? So I, 30 female, am giving birth soon, and we have this thing where I'm from, which is basically post-pregnancy recovery. What we do is stay in bed and try to recover the physical and mental toll pregnancy did on our body. So I've moved to my husband's country, and it's not a widely done thing here apparently, and I've already taken 2 months off of work. I've talked to my husband about this, but he thinks it's very unnecessary, especially since I need someone to take care of me and the baby during the period. So here's why I think it's feasible. 1. We make really good money, so it's not going to make a big dent in our financial account. 2. I can just have my parents take care of me. 3. My company has really good employee benefits, so even if I take that extra month off, it will still be under parental leave. 4. My state has parental leave for guys too, so my husband can also stay home to spend more time with our daughter and me. But my husband was really against it, and I do want to acknowledge it might be very troublesome to extend my parents' visa. So would I be the jerk if I bring up the topic again? He's white and American with Irish descent if that matters. Edit. I tried talking about it before, but it was shut down, and I thought it was fine and I could go without one. But my pregnancy wasn't smooth after 6-month mark, and instead of natural birth, we are now going C-section, and a lot of stuff happened, especially within the last few weeks. So now I'm pretty adamant about getting this 1 extra month of rest. To clarify, when I say confinement, I don't mean actually just staying in the bed. Of course I can actually move around, and yoga is probably going to be in my routine. But confinement as in I avoid going out, I avoid doing strenuous activity, and to rest more. And yes, per my doctor's recommendations, she wants me to rest for at least a month. Hi, husband here. Would like to say this has opened up my viewpoint. Was fed with a very skewed version of childbirth. We will be keeping discussions private from here. Thank you for the inputs. Update. I'm doing the confinement. My parents will come over, but will be living in hotels until the 3rd week after my delivery, since my husband will be overseas. I appreciate all of your comments and concerns. My parents will be meeting their grandkiddos. Also, for clarification, my parents aren't here yet. I meant extend visa as in the usual visa only allows 30 days. We're trying to extend it to those short-term stay visa. Not the jerk. When your husband actually delivers, then he'll have a say. Unfortunately, he's not delivering on being a supportive spouse to his pregnant wife. Not the jerk. America is the most backwards when it comes to maternal care, and your husband is a product of that culture. What they, and everywhere, should do is more like what you're used to from home. When you've grown an entire human, then pushed it out at great pain and potentially lifetime difficulties, you deserve to rest as much as you feel you need. That time should be just you and the baby getting to know each other and your new routines. Do what you need to do, mama. You have earned it. Am I the jerk for eating a prepped meal in my car before going into a restaurant with my girlfriend because of my strict diet? Over the last couple of years, I've lost nearly 80 pounds through extreme dedication to dieting and exercise. It's been a life-changing journey for me. The journey started when my doctors warned me about my poor cardiovascular health because of my unhealthy eating habits and lifestyle. With 30 right around the corner, I couldn't keep being the man I was before. It was a significant wake-up call. I tried immediately just focusing on going hard in the gym, but I tried lifting weights without eating properly and pretty much fried my CNS during deadlifts, causing me to pass out at the gym. It really scared me. Since then, I've taken my health incredibly seriously. I prep all of my meals, and they're calculated to meet my nutritional needs for the day and keep a caloric deficit to have me on track for losing weight. I've avoided going out to eat at all costs, as it feels like a slippery slope back into my old habits. For me, restaurants are like relapsing. One bite of a cheesesteak egg roll, and I'm buying Oreos on the way home and falling off the wagon. My girlfriend has been supportive of my health journey, but hasn't joined me. She still cooks and eats as she did before, which is a lot of food covered in fats and sugars with a lot of calories. I appreciate her cooking, but I can't eat most of the meals that she makes. It's been a bit of a strain on our relationship, but we've managed. So, boom. The conflict arose on our anniversary last month. She wanted to go out to a fancy restaurant to celebrate, and I wanted to make the night special as well, and I agreed to go. I even made sure I had calories left over to have drinks with her. However, I didn't want to break my diet and decided to bring a prepped meal to eat in the car before we went in. She discovered what I was doing and got really upset. She called me a jerk for not putting aside my diet for one night saying I cared more about my food intake than about our special day. She said that I was being selfish and that I should have been more considerate of her feelings since it's our anniversary. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I understand where she's coming from, and I didn't mean to upset her. On the other hand, I've worked really hard to improve my health, and I'm scared of falling back into my old habits. Am I the jerk for sticking to my diet, even on our anniversary? Edit. I'm 5'4" and 297 pounds currently. Sorry, but you're the jerk. This is your responsibility to address, man. You have an extremely unhealthy relationship with food you need to work on, probably with a professional. I get this started for the right reasons, but you have wildly overcorrected, and it seems like you're pretty firmly in disorder territory. Your significant other has been supportive and literally wanted one dinner out with you for your anniversary. You shouldn't be in a relationship if you can't do this for her. It's the bare minimum stuff. Your mental health is important, so take care of it. I hope you do, because what you are describing is not sustainable or normal, and it won't end well. Edit. Please stop flooding this post with your ignorant straw man arguments that this is equivalent to asking an alcoholic or an addict to indulge in their vice. It is simply not comparable. You're not blowing anybody's mind, and you're not coming across as some intelligent maverick. Food is necessary to live. Food is not good or evil. For alcoholics and addicts, the only true solution to healing is abstinence. This is not the case with food. You need to eat, and OP's obsession with control over his diet is simply not sustainable. It's not normal or okay to not be able to eat at a restaurant for one singular meal. Kudos to him for making the change, but he's gone too far when it has affected his life to this degree. He needs legitimate help if he can't relinquish control of his food intake enough to enjoy a single meal for a special occasion at a restaurant, which could be healthy, without fear of spiraling into a binge-eating hole where he loses all sense of self and eats himself into oblivion. He promised his significant other a date night at a restaurant, and he shocked her with a brown bag meal in front of the restaurant so he could watch her eat and drink a cocktail. This is not okay behavior as a partner, which is why he is the jerk. If he can't handle that, he should be single. Stop with the ridiculous comparisons to her asking him to drink as an alcoholic. You are so wildly off base it's embarrassing. Believe it or not, an eating disorder is harmful even if you're overweight. Nobody thinks you're some shredded Greek god for thinking otherwise. You're the jerk to yourself more than anything. You have an extremely unhealthy relationship with food. You think your diet is helping you, but it sounds more like you have a problem. One nice meal in years of taking care of yourself will not disrupt your diet. If it would, then you are very unhealthy mentally. Do you go to a therapist or a dietitian? I hear you, but you're the jerk. I lost 60 pounds myself this year and plan on more, so I do understand your dedication and the strict calorie counting. However, special days are special for a reason. Let's say the entire meal with a drink came to 3,500 calories. You and I both know that's equivalent to 1 pound of body fat. Those calories might set you back and take 2 weeks to get back on track, but it's worth it to avoid this. Sorry, but you're the jerk here. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
OP set a goal, and now he's staying dedicated to that goal to accomplish it. He's not letting anything knock him off of his path, and he's continuing to succeed. I'm not surprised in the least that the people on Reddit are knocking him for that.
Am I the jerk for sending our son away after he revealed to his sister's friends that she has dentures? My husband and I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. When our daughter was 8, she developed a very rare mouth infection that just absolutely devastated her teeth and gums. She ended up losing all of her teeth in both sets and had to have some corrective work done, just so she could have regular dentures. Obviously, this was a horrible time for her, and she's still in therapy to help cope to this day. Our daughter is understandably very self-conscious about this. None of her friends knew about them. In fact, nobody besides her doctor and dentist know outside of the family. She doesn't want people to know. She's very worried about people finding out and won't even take her teeth out in front of us. She's worried someone will see. Her and her brother had a good relationship until he did what he did last week. He somehow recorded her taking out her teeth without her noticing and then showed all of her friends when they were over. Not only have they all turned on her, but half the school is teasing her nonstop. She even had to change her phone number because dozens of kids were texting her the most vile things imaginable. I've never been more ashamed of one of my kids until that moment. I don't know where we went wrong raising him, but apparently he thought it would be funny. After I kicked out her friends who were mocking her and helped her through a panic attack, I called my father to pick him up and told him to pack a bag and get out. He's been staying with my parents 2 towns over. They didn't know what happened until 2 days ago. That came up because driving him to school was becoming a hassle and they wanted to know what was up. When I explained, they were disgusted, but still wanted to know when they could bring him home. I asked them if they'd take care of registering him for school in their town, and they agreed, but were shocked. My husband and I talked, and we just cannot have him here. His sister hates him. We're so ashamed we can't even think of calling him. It sounds awful, but I don't think our relationship can recover from this, and maybe this is what he needs. No friends, no family, aside from his grandparents, having to start over might just set him straight. My parents are willing to keep him until he's 18, but I think we're too emotionally charged to be making this decision now. What he did was vile, and he deserves a harsh punishment for what he did. However, I don't think the punishment issued fits the crime. You can't just throw your son away, and you can come back from this. It will take a lot of therapy for all of you, but it can happen. I honestly don't know how to judge this post though. Everyone sucks here. I love that you have your daughter's back and apply serious consequences for your son. What I don't love is that you didn't mention how he reacted to the aftermath of what he has done and the consequences. I also think it's an overreaction to permanently disown your son and cut him out from your life. He's still your son. Yes, terrible mistake, but still a minor and still your son. You should be working with him and not just being like this. So yes, let him live with his grandparents, but work on a way to rebuild your own, not your daughter's, relationship with him. Call. Let him do volunteer work. Something. Am I the jerk for telling my sister she's inconsiderate for only providing vegan options at our wedding? I, 30 female, and my sister, who's 32, have an okay relationship. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. She met a guy named Riley, who's 33, and they hit it off so well that he proposed to her 3 months after they started dating. Our parents thought it was too soon, but they left them alone because they're grown and can make their own decisions. Anyway, my sister and Riley have decided to go vegan. Cool, I don't really care. Only issue I have is that they tried to incorporate it into nearly every conversation we have. They have somewhat boring personalities, so I guess they needed something to make their personality about, but it's okay. I was invited to their wedding, and not gonna lie, I had to think about it for a bit because I'm not too big on social gatherings, but it was my sister, so I decided to go. At the wedding, I had a fairly good time. Wasn't too bad. Got to talk to some new people and get out of my comfort zone a bit. The fun came to a complete stop when it was time to eat though. All the food was vegan. Things like bread, tofu salad. I don't even know, man. I wasn't the only one confused, but the guests still dug in. I wasn't a fan though. I confronted my sister and Riley and asked what was up with all the vegan food. They said they wanted to present a different lifestyle to the guests and joked about steering them away from meat. I was pretty disgusted, not gonna lie. That sounded rude. I snapped back and said, if I did the same thing to you guys but with meat, how would you react? Stop being so inconsiderate and learn to cater to your guests. She told me if I had a problem with it, then, the door is to your left and you don't need to look back. I laughed and said there was no way she was kicking me out over calling them out. She shrugged, then walked away. Riley called me entitled and said I ruined what was supposed to be a special day. I sighed and left. That same night, I got a phone call from my dad that my sister was in tears. He told me I should have acted my age and focused on my sister and her new husband, not the food. My mom also texted me that my behavior was shameful and that I wasn't raised to be judgmental of people's life choices. I immediately felt bad. I kept thinking about it. I couldn't sleep at night because I kept replaying the confrontation in my head. I was just sick of all this vegan crap being forced on me, and I was hangry. Am I the jerk? Edit. Wow, I don't eat meat every single day. I was just hungry and in the mood for some that day. And when I saw the food and it was all vegan and it looked like crap, I noped out. Yeah, I could have reacted better, but I'm tired of them always talking about being vegan and telling me I should try it out. You're the jerk. Are you sure you're 30? This post reads like a young teenager wrote it. Your behavior also is more akin to a young teen than a fully grown adult. It's their wedding. They can serve whatever food they please at their wedding. You were also very dismissive of the whole thing before you even got there, acting like some kind of martyr because you deigned to attend your sister's wedding. You couldn't just suck up your crappy attitude for one day. You're the jerk. Vegans and vegetarians cannot eat meat. You made a false equivalency. You serving me this food I don't like is the same as if I served you food you can't eat. Am I the jerk for telling my parents I won't get a part-time job? I'm 16, male. My parents recently have been telling me to start making my own money to pay for unneeded stuff, like expensive clothes and nights out with friends, which, fair enough. They told me to get a traditional part-time job, working at a store or a restaurant, or babysitting or whatever. I decided those sounded time-consuming and boring, so I decided to utilize my good taste in clothes to make money in a more hands-off way. I used money I have already, remnants of birthday money mostly, to go to a thrift store and buy clothes I knew would be in trend right now and then sell them, either online or to people I know, then withdraw some of the money for personal spending and put most back towards buying more stuff. This is optimal because now, as of a month after starting, I'm making pretty good money for very little work. 1 to 2 hours every weekend at the thrift store, then another 1 to 2 hours to pose for photos modeling the clothes and post them online. And even that little amount of work is something I find fun. So all in all, seems better than working longer hours at something I'd find boring for similar pay. My parents are angry because I took what was supposed to be a teachable moment about hard work and just ruined it by finding a way to make money that's not hard work at all. They demand in order for me to learn about hard work, I quit this and get an actual part-time job. I see no logical reason to. As I said, what I have going is quicker and much more enjoyable than a part-time job for similar amounts of money earned. To put it simply, why would I work more hours doing something I like less just for the same amount of money? Sounds irrational, right? They think I'm the jerk and being lazy here. I agree that there's a certain amount of laziness involved, but if my system works, it works. Am I the jerk? I don't think anyone is the jerk here. As a parent, I can see why they would want you to get a more traditional job. Usually side gigs like this aren't great in the long run, and it's hard to stay on top of an ever-turning trend market. A regular part-time job for a teen generally teaches responsibility, how to interact with people, time management, punctuality, etc. I think it's great that you found a way to make money doing something you like. Your teen years are supposed to be the time where you learn who you are, have fun, make memories, etc. My parents wanted me to focus on this and school rather than working. If I wanted money for something that wasn't a necessity, for example, dance tickets, I'd earn it by doing chores around the house, babysitting, etc. It's not irrational. A little lazy, yes. You are doing work and learning responsibility, so I would just try to let it go for now. Everyone sucks here. Your parents told you that you needed to earn your own money, so you did. They don't get to tell you you're doing it wrong simply because you didn't do it the same way that they would. But I'd also implore you to do some reading about what upselling thrifted items is doing to the secondhand industry. You're essentially taking trendy items out of the hands of people who otherwise couldn't afford them. And the influx of people like you is driving up prices at thrift stores and pricing out the people who truly need them. So unfortunately, your money-making scheme is lazy and comes with some real-world consequences. You're the jerk. Thrift stores are there to provide cheap clothes for people, whether for them to find a more sustainable way to shop or for those who need it because they don't have much money. You're taking advantage of that to sell clothes that were donated. Those clothes are meant to be cheap, not resold so you can make money without effort. I've worked at thrift stores since the 2000s. I don't think you're aware of who actually shops there. Yes, there are people who haven't got a lot of money and have no other affordable choices, but they're the minority of thrift shoppers. No one is missing out. Not only has shopping at thrift stores become very trendy for the past several decades, we get a megaton of clothes constantly. It's where you can find amazing stuff from vintage fashion to affordable leather jackets. We get so many clothes that the stuff that doesn't sell within a month gets thrown into a giant bale maker and the bales are sent off to other countries. It breaks my heart because really cool and cute clothes get thrown in and the baler is often brutal and will ruin them. But what can we do? More mountains of clothes are on the way. Thrift stores aren't exclusively for the poor or exist as a charity alone. They are resellers. They have too much cool stuff every month to sell it all. Everyone, please come and get it before I start weeping by the baler again. Karen stops me mid-workout and demands to use the squat rack. This is becoming more and more common at the surrounding gyms, which is really annoying and a reason I've changed gyms more than once this year alone. Working out is a pillar of my everyday life, and it has been for the past 10 years, and I'm at the gym every day of the week. Now, I don't go to the gym to talk to people, make friends, or make funny videos. I go to train and go home. However, now with the new video trends, many folks want to record their exercises to post on social media. This is their business and not mine. They can do whatever they want, but I also don't think I need to stop doing my own workout to accommodate them. Last night I was doing squats on the Smith machine. I work out with headphones and I didn't notice that someone was trying to get my attention. I suddenly felt a tap on my shoulder mid-squat, and only then I noticed a woman with a very annoyed expression. She barely allowed me to finish the movement to start talking, which was muffled due to headphones. Long story short, she was annoyed because I was training on the Smith machine and she wanted to record herself doing regular squats. However, she said the best spot was in front of that Smith machine. There's more than one, and she didn't want me on the frame. So she wanted me to stop my series for her to record. Now, usually if someone comes to me with a good attitude and asks if it's okay for me to stop for a series or two for them to record or even move machines, I would absolutely not mind and comply. This lady did nothing of the sort, being extremely arrogant and honestly extremely annoying. So I was petty and I told her to record once I was done, and I proceeded to do every single exercise I could on the same Smith machine. Squats, Smith. Hip thrust, Smith. It was petty, and I know I shouldn't have done it, but I felt very vindicated seeing her annoying expression. That being said, a few people said I was a jerk for doing that, as there were other machines I could have used. Honestly, they might be right, but hey, I thought I'd ask the internet. Was I too much of a jerk here? Not the jerk. First off, who interrupts someone mid-squat? A lot of gyms have a no recording policy where I live. In my last gym, these people just got reported to the fitness manager. Not the jerk. For all those people trying to film themselves in a public place, get over yourselves. We don't care about your 1,327 followers seeing your gains. Stop disrupting public space with your ego. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have gone ahead and moved for her or not? Please let us know.
I would have started coughing all over her. It's one of the quickest ways to get people to stop messing with you, especially these days.
My Karen mother-in-law destroyed my backyard, gets taught a lesson. To provide some background, my mother-in-law lives in the basement suite of our house, and despite our language barrier, it hasn't caused any major issues. She takes care of our 4-year-old and 2-year-old while my wife and I are at work. One day, I noticed that my 4-year-old son was unable to drive his ride-on car onto the patio because there was a 2-inch gap between the patio and the yard. Instead of having him drive the car clockwise onto the yard, where he could easily reach the patio, my mother-in-law decided to pile up soil and gravel on the grass to create a ramp. I still can't understand the logic behind her decision. I take great pride in maintaining my yard. I prefer having a beautiful, soft, and even grassy area for my kids to play on, rather than a dry, patchy stretch of dust. My mother-in-law is well aware of this, and she knows how much effort I put into it. Last year, she made sure to tell me that it was my wife, not her, who accidentally burned a patch of grass while trying to deal with ants using boiling water. However, this year, without my notice, she piled up soil and gravel in a section of my backyard early in the spring. When it was time for me to start my annual yard work, which includes trimming hedges, killing weeds, mowing, reseeding, and fertilizing, I discovered the damage. The grass was gone, the soil was tightly packed like concrete, and loose gravel was scattered all over the yard, posing a hazard for my mower, which now has a chewed-up blade. It took me the entire afternoon to dig out, loosen, and level the soil. I also had to collect all of the gravel and use an entire 5-kilogram, 11-pound bag of lawn patch for the repairs, mulch, seed, and fertilizer. It will be late into the summer before the yard begins to regain its lush appearance. Today, after a light rainfall overnight, I was checking if the yard needed watering when my mother-in-law stormed out, insisting that the pile of soil and gravel had to remain there for my son. I lost my temper and gestured angrily to show her that he could still drive his car by simply going clockwise around the yard and through the patio. She stormed back into the suite and later informed my wife that if I didn't like how she babysat the kids, I could take care of them myself, even though I already do, and she only helps when I'm working. I struggle to understand the logic here, since the issue wasn't about her ability to supervise the kids, but rather the destruction of my yard, just to avoid changing the direction of my son's car. Unfortunately, my wife has taken her mother's side and argues that she has the right to do whatever she wants with our property. Am I the jerk for repairing the damage my mother-in-law caused to my yard? Update: the character limit prevented me from explaining that this was not an isolated incident. My mother-in-law has caused permanent damage to the yard on multiple occasions without even mentioning it, including creating a hole in the line of cedars that surrounds the yard for privacy because she decided they should look like the neighbor's pine trees, not cedars. I caught her after she had already done one. Pruning a large spherical hedge into a mushroom shape so she wouldn't have to duck under the branches or walk around it. ripping out decorative ivy from a large flower garden in the front yard to turn it into a vegetable garden, because apparently the 7x20 vegetable garden in the backyard wasn't enough. She repeatedly shows she doesn't care what we're doing with our yard. Additionally, I'm not mad about the extra work. I'm mad that she felt she was in a position to chew me out for undoing the work she did, undoing the work I did. Here's where I say that you don't have a mother-in-law problem, you have a wife problem. Your mother-in-law made changes, your wife was happy with them, and you changed it back. No communication. I'm going to say everyone sucks here. Just making changes without talking to someone is low-level, petty, passive-aggressive crap. Everyone sucks here. Firstly, you obviously don't spend that much time in the garden if you don't notice for weeks or months. Your mother-in-law should have absolutely asked before changing anything. Why didn't you make him a temporary wooden ramp? There's more than one way to fix a problem. You say you take pride in your yard, but then you say you didn't go out there until early spring. Pick a story and stick with it. You're the jerk. You didn't notice for months, and now it's a problem because the grass doesn't go right to the patio? Take advantage of the excuse to get rid of the rest of the crap and plant some real plants. At best, this is everyone sucks here, because she really could have asked. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his mother-in-law? Please let us know.
Something tells me these bozos leaving the comments don't know a thing about lawn care.
Something tells me they don't know a thing about anything.
Now let's keep this rocking so we can finish up and go spread our fertilizer.
Am I the jerk for returning a birthday gift I got from my boyfriend after he insulted me about my colorful past? This happened last night, but my phone is still blowing up. I, female 26, dipped into my savings and got Mike, my boyfriend who's 27, a PS5 for his birthday yesterday. He knew he was getting the PS5 because he told me that the PS5 is the only thing he wants. We've been together for 4 years, so the cost didn't matter. That is, until I found out what he thinks about me. Some background. When I was 18, I was involved with Jake, a guy who I met online. We ended things after 3 months, and I moved on shortly after with Adam, a guy from work. I found out a couple months later that Jake and Adam were actually really close friends, but I didn't know Jake long enough to meet his friend group, so I had no idea. After finding out, I took some time off dating, and 2 years later, I met my current boyfriend, Mike. I was upfront and honest with Mike about my past and the fact that I was unintentionally involved with friends. He said he understood and my past didn't bother him. Last night at his party, I showed up with the PS5 and him and his friends were screaming with joy. His best female friend, Jessica, laughed and said, "I wish I got around so I could afford a PS5 too." I looked at her with an "excuse me" look on my face and she just said, "Never mind," and walked away. I confronted my boyfriend about it and he said, and I quote, "She's just messing with you. You can't take a joke?" So I pushed further as to why this girl is even calling me names to begin with, and he said, "Well, everyone knows you got around before you met me." I asked him to explain how so, and he said, "You know, messing with best friends." He then pat me on the shoulder and said, "That's okay, because you're not the same person you were back then, and I can get over your colorful past and your mentalities. And if I can give you another chance, you can get over Jessica's comments." I didn't say anything. I just got up, took the PS5 from the gift table, and I left. He was ticked off. He literally called me 20 times, but I didn't care. I was so hurt that I took off the bow and I took it straight back to the store that I got it from. They happily refunded me. I thought that was done, but Mike and all of his friends, including Jessica, are going off on me for being petty, and they're all saying I brought this on myself by making poor choices. I responded to Mike and told him that he deserves better than me, so go find someone without a past like mine and get the PS5 from them because I returned it. He started screaming how I'm the biggest jerk for returning it and how I should be happy he ignored my colorful past. I'm thinking maybe I took it too far. Am I the jerk? I'm so confused, but maybe that's because I'm an old lady who got married around the time you were in kindergarten. A, if anyone was wrong in the Jake and Adam incident, it was Adam. You might have dated friends, but he dated his best friend's ex. That's on them to figure out, and Adam's mistake only. 2, where I come from, dating 3 dudes in 7 years does not mean a colorful past. Not the jerk, and I hope you do something special for yourself with a little of that money you got back from returning that gift you got for your ex-boyfriend. Not the jerk. Nothing about your past is even colorful. OMG, you dated 2 guys that happened to be friends. Good heavens, where are my pearls? I must clutch them. Sounds like Jessica is either getting with this guy or she wants to. She can have him. Use the money to get yourself something nice. Your past isn't colorful. You haven't done anything wrong. There's no need for you to feel badly about who you dated, and frankly, it's no one else's business. The fact that your boyfriend not only judged you, but also shared his judgment with his friends is inexcusable. You don't do hurtful things like that to people you care about. He wanted you to feel less than. You did the right thing. Now you need to find someone who deserves an amazing person like you. Don't settle for anything else. Definitely not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
I would have turned it around on them. Oh, I'm always open for an upgrade. Too bad all of your friends are even bigger betas than you are.
Am I the jerk for banning my sister-in-law from my house over tomato sauce? I, 28 female, have an older brother who's 32 male. He's married to my sister-in-law who's 33. I get along with her well, except for this one point. If you don't keep an eye on her, she'll go into the kitchen and add seasonings to whatever is cooking. She thinks she's fixing stuff, but not all foods need turmeric in it. This Saturday, I received 40 pounds of tomatoes. It took me the whole weekend to turn it into a sauce that I was planning to can. I can it plain, then add whatever seasonings and herbs it needs, depending on the recipe. They came to take a bag of spare clothes for one of their kids, and in the 5 minutes it took me to get it, she managed to get into the kitchen, add salt, pepper, turmeric, olive oil, garlic powder, and Italian herbs to all 5 of the pots that were simmering on the stove. She shouldn't have done that, that's wrong. And when I asked her what she was doing, she had the audacity to say,
This sauce needed some taste. I added it for you.
Like I've never told her to not touch what I was cooking before. I was so angry that I knew I couldn't be calm talking with her, so I simply walked to my brother, told him to take the clothes and his wife, and that she's no longer welcome in my house. She had followed me, was shocked, started apologizing, but I just ignored her. I added that he should come by tomorrow to take the sauce that his wife ruined, because otherwise it would be thrown away, and that I expected 40 pounds of replacement tomatoes. They left, he came back with the tomatoes, an apology letter from her, and an apology carrot cake, my favorite. But I told him that I stand by my decision. Now my parents got involved, since I'm the one that usually hosts, and since she's not allowed in my house, I told them to make alternate plans for Memorial Day. My husband says that I'm in the right, but my parents say that my reaction is way overblown. So, am I the jerk? Edit. Since there seems to be some confusion, I'm not planning to host for Memorial Day and not invite her. I said I'm not hosting. My parents or my brother should host, and I will attend as a guest. I might be angry, but I don't want her excluded. This is so boundary disrespecting, disrespectful, and insulting to what you're cooking. And it wasn't even for her. Not the jerk for being furious. I do think she's learned her lesson though. OP. She thinks we don't season enough. But here's the thing. If I'm making Indian or Chinese, I toast the spices and grind them with a mortar and pestle. My Ethiopian friend says that I make spicier food than her mom. But if I'm making mac and cheese, a burger, or mashed potatoes, of course I'm only using salt and pepper, because usually the flavors are in the sauce or gravy. Not the jerk. She's crossing boundaries, poking into something where she doesn't belong. It's all kinds of wrong to mess with someone else's cooking. What if you were making something for someone allergic to turmeric? Good on your brother for replacing the tomatoes and on her for apologizing. That said, you're still in the right for banning her from the house, especially if that's happened multiple times and you've been clear with her that it's not acceptable. If you're thinking about letting her back in, I'd make sure the apology is a real apology first. Not, I'm sorry if your feelings were hurt, but something which takes responsibility for her actions. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that his dream of becoming a successful streamer and content creator isn't going to work? I'm a tattoo artist and a piercer. I co-own and run a tattoo and piercing business with a friend, and I have many employees under me. We are open 6 days a week from 1 p.m. to midnight. 4 days are a regular appointment schedule, while the final 2 days of the week are walk-in days for people who want something faster than usual without having to set up a time. On top of setting up and closing the shop every day, I drive 45 minutes to work and then 45 minutes home each day. I get home past 3 a.m. almost every night, eat, and then sleep a few hours. We're busy constantly throughout the week. I only have 1 day off, and I usually end up spending it cleaning the house, cooking, or doing anything else that needs to be done. My boyfriend, on the other hand, is trying to become a successful Twitch streamer and YouTuber. He started around 4 years ago. He has a few dozen followers on both platforms and usually has around 2 to 5 viewers for each stream or video. It's gotten pretty bad in the past 2.5 years or so though. He streams while I'm at work, and that'll usually be an 11 to 13-hour stream a day, depending on what he does. His life revolves around content creation now. He wakes up to stream, then spends all day streaming a game, and then uploads it to YouTube. The other problem with it is that in the 4 years he's been doing this, he hasn't worked a single job. He's unemployed. Not one single donation or any monetary expense has come from his endeavor. He literally does nothing but stream. He quit his floor manager job at Walmart to become this. I've talked to him recently about maybe cutting down the hours on his streams so he has time to do stuff around the house, spend time with me, or better his health. He doesn't even eat unless I remind him when I get home late. It's literally hurting him. I also explained that maybe he should think about getting a new job so I'm not the only one paying all the bills or groceries. I'd like help of any kind. I can't do all this alone anymore. Each one of these talks has turned into a fight between us. He will get super defensive about it and tell me off. He tries to convince me that I don't understand his lifestyle and that I don't understand how hard it is to be a content creator. It's gotten more and more heated. He'll have a tantrum and go back to streaming to his community that supports him. The other day, I straight up told him his dream of being a successful streamer or content creator of any kind is never going to work out the way he thinks it will. He doesn't seem to understand that the hours he's putting in are doing more harm than good for us and him. He had another tantrum and promptly told me he wanted a break from the relationship. We aren't talking, and now he's doing nothing but the same usual routine. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. So during this break, is he still living with you? Because that's not really a break. I definitely recommend dumping him and never looking back. He acts like a kid, and you're his parents and responsible for paying for his food and shelter. Please date an adult next time. Your life will improve dramatically. Not the jerk. 4 years and still not being able to gain any monetary value from it? Sounds like a hobby to me. Hobbies don't pay the bills. Not the jerk. He's not your boyfriend, he's your dependent, and of the moody teenager variety from the sounds of it. Not the jerk. He's delusional and in dire need of a reality check. It's okay to support your boyfriend while he works at building his career, but this is not it. Not at all. It's leading him nowhere.
Never waste your life with a leech who wants to use you and add nothing of value to your life.
Am I the jerk for telling my sister she needs to pay for childcare or I'm not going to her wedding? I'm 25, female, and my sister, who's 28, her wedding is in a couple months. She recently sent out invitations. I was invited as a regular guest, not a bridesmaid or a maid of honor, since we live a state apart, and obviously there's a certain level of involvement and time that goes into bearing part of a bridal party, which I understand. I want to be there for my sister, and obviously I'd like to see her get married. But the problem is, I'm a single mom. My son is 6, and when he's not in school, I need to be home watching him. So being out for hours at a time isn't really in the cards for me right now. My sister's wedding is child-free. Since it's taking place in her state, I'd need to commute, and I'd probably have to be gone from my house for 2 full days. I can't have family watch my son since they'll all be at the wedding, and I don't really have friends who will babysit for 2 days. I contacted my sister and asked if she'd be willing to let my son come to the wedding with me and explained that he couldn't be left alone so young and that I didn't have anyone to watch him. She responded by telling me her no kids policy was strict and that she wouldn't make exceptions. I explained my situation again and said I'd need some form of childcare or to bring him with me. I then asked her if she would pay me to hire a nanny or a babysitter to watch him. She got offended and said, "Children and weddings are both parts of life, and you need to just figure it out. It's not my kid or my problem." Which sure, that's true, but also her wedding, her making it a problem by not allowing me to bring my kid. I told her she could either pay me for my childcare or I wouldn't be going to her wedding, which all she did was call me ridiculous and entitled. She said she shouldn't have to pay for my kid and that part of being an adult is knowing how to take care of that kind of thing. I know that's ridiculous. Money is tight, childcare is expensive. I can't magically afford for someone to watch my 6-year-old and most people would just let me bring him to the wedding. My sister says she's definitely not paying for childcare and, "I guess you're not going to the wedding then." My whole family is mad at me for not being there for my sister. Am I the jerk? Edit. I think some people are misunderstanding the post, so I'll make it more clear. I'm not trying to force my sister to pay for anything, and it's totally fine if I can't come. She accepts that, and I just don't go. It only became a problem when my entire family came after me for not going to the wedding. I'm not mad at my sister for not paying. I'm mad at her for turning the family against me and saying I don't want to attend her wedding and complaining about me behind my back to my parents. She complained about me not going to the wedding as if I was purposely avoiding it. You're the jerk. I get where you're coming from, but you went about this all wrong. I'm sorry, but it's not within my budget to travel so far and also arrange to pay for my childcare when I get there. I send my best. Full stop. Don't ask for handouts from a stressed out bride. Is that what people do? If she's gracious, she or the family will offer a solution, but you don't ask for that. That's where the entitlement came from. In the end, the kid is your responsibility, no one else's. You're the jerk. It's no one else's responsibility to pay for your kids. Completely unreasonable ask. Asking a bride a state away, your sister of all people, to pay for childcare for a night or two so you can attend their special event is not unreasonable at all. Between sisters, like, hey sis, I can't afford this thing. Do you really want me there? If so, I have to ask, can you pay for the childcare so I can attend? Otherwise, I may just have to bow out. If the conversation went like this, and OP sister reacted with her stress and psycho in the moment, it might be fine. But OP wasn't asking unreasonable things. This is across state lines, a travel wedding, and a sister who's not even a part of the wedding party. It didn't have to be a screaming match. It could have been, oh no sis, I can't pay for that with all the wedding expenses. I'm so sorry you can't come. Like, what planet are we living on that it's abnormal to ask a sister for help in a situation that they're being put in by their sister? What the heck? Aside from some tone issues, which I won't police, no jerks here. Your sister's position that it's her wedding, there's no kids, and as your kid's parent, you need to figure it out is totally valid. Your position that your parenting responsibilities come first, and that unless your sister can help out with childcare, you won't be able to attend is also valid. That's how you've figured it out. Not attending is a valid solution to this problem. That's the default solution to your situation. Anyone judging you for your parenting choices or your inability to afford childcare is a jerk. Am I the jerk for saying I'll be driving myself and paying for my own room on the upcoming family vacation so I won't have to be a babysitter? I, 23 male, was repeatedly stuck playing the part of helper and babysitter on family outings. I had to move out of my parents' house because I kept being forced to help watch my 3 nephews. Last year, we took a family vacation in summer to the coast. I rode along with my parents and they paid for my hotel room. Only I had to share that room with 3 rowdy boys because my sister and her husband wanted a room to themselves. I was promised time to do my own things on the vacation, but instead, I ended up having to help with these kids. I complained to everyone about it, and I was reminded I was there for free. And then we pretty much just did only one thing I wanted to do, which was tour an art gallery. I like doing this whenever I'm at the coast, but the kids find it boring. This year, my parents have a beach trip planned for June, and they assumed I'd be riding along the same way as last year. But I refused. I said I'd be driving myself and paying for my own hotel stay to have my own room. My parents were shocked and tried to remind me of the cost. I said it was expensive, but no worries. I've got a good job and a good decent running car. I can more than afford it. That's when the buts started. I stated the previously listed things as why I'll be driving myself and paying for myself. I want to be able to enjoy this vacation as an adult and not be treated like a kid like last year. My parents told my sister, and she called to blow up at me that I'll be ruining the vacation if I'm off doing my own thing while she has to wrangle her 3 kids. I ended up yelling at her that last year all she did was rope me into her mess. I didn't really get to do much of anything I wanted to do, and I was treated like the bad guy for wanting to just go to an art gallery. I'm a grown man. I deserve my own vacation too. Now my sister is not speaking to me, and my parents are still trying to convince me to just ride with them to keep the peace. I'm still refusing, but the pressure is getting to me. Am I the jerk for not giving in? I know they'll have a pretty hard time when they won't have another person there to help. Edit. It's barely been an hour since I posted, but my sister is apparently a Reddit lurker in the mornings and she saw my post. Not only is she furious with me, but she's also upset no one in the comments is siding with her. To make it short, she went on a big rant about how it's so hard to be a parent to triplets, and the least I could do is help because I'm young and single and she needs a break. I stood my ground on my decision, and now she's calling our parents to get them involved too. I'm expecting a call from them any minute. Update. Well, I'm off work now, so I can tell more of what went down. I guess you could say it's over. My sister got our parents involved, they looked at my post, and were absolutely horrified by the continuous influx of commenters. Yes, they're very angry with me that I posted here, but I told them that if they had just listened to me to begin with, I wouldn't have needed to. I'm sick of the whole keep the peace mentality that sacrifices me to placate my sister. They in turn went off on my sister, and to make a long story short, the whole vacation has been canceled. The hotel wasn't booked yet anyway, but my parents are arguing with my sister is blaming me, and my nephews are crying because they aren't going to the beach. My sister called me at lunch and basically implied I have no life, which is why I have time to help. I recorded that and told our parents, and that's currently what they're fighting about. I sincerely thank everyone here for all of the advice, but I don't think I'll need to update again. That's a laugh. She's admitting that she's ruining your vacation so as to not ruin her own. They're her kids and her responsibility, not the jerk. In fact, you're nicer than I would be. I'd just say, no thanks, I've got other plans, and avoid the family vacation altogether. Not the jerk. But if you're paying for yourself, go somewhere else on your own and make it a hard no to the babysitting. Am I the jerk for telling my parents I'm willing to sell them my forgiveness? My parents expected me to be independent the minute I turned 18. They gave me the money they had saved up for my education, and they started charging me rent. I was lucky enough to have a partial scholarship, and I found a job in the city my university was in, so I moved there before the school year began. With my parents' money, my scholarship, and my wages, I was able to scrape by. I rarely, if ever, spoke with my parents. I was kind of busy. I guess they decided that they didn't want that kind of relationship with my younger siblings because they were not presented with the same option. They both lived at home all through university and even afterwards. I'm 34 now with a decent job and a great girlfriend whom I will be marrying this summer. I sent my parents and siblings an invitation. They called me to ask why they were not involved in the wedding. I responded that they hadn't really been part of my life in 16 years and that I was being nice by inviting them. They said that they acknowledged that they made mistakes when I was young, but that was in the past and I should get over it. Against my fiance's advice, I sent them an itemized bill for everything I paid for myself that they freely gave my brother and sister. I said if they wanted to be a part of my life, they had to ante up. They said they can't afford that because they're still in debt from helping my siblings out. I laughed at that and said I hoped that I would see them at the wedding and hung up. My family are all getting a hold of me and letting me know how I'm hurting my parents. The thing is that I don't want their money, and I don't want anything from them at all other than their attendance at my wedding. If they can't do that, then I'm fine with our yearly phone call. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Maybe the itemized bill was a bit much, but I imagine it was cathartic for you. Your parents haven't really been around in a decade and a half. They have a lot of nerve to ask to be involved. Not being involved in your wedding is just reaping what they sowed. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding. Landscaping owner rips off my friend for $400, so my friend makes him incur $15,000 in expenses. A while back, my friend was selling some stuff online, and among the items was a water heater. You know, the ones you see in every community hall and church kitchen. It was in working condition. He threw it up online for $150 and got an email from a person who runs a landscaping business saying he'll give him $100 cash today. Done. 2 weeks later, he got an email saying that it's not working. Weird. So my friend offered to give a full refund or cover repair cost if it's under $100. The guy instead sent an invoice for $400 saying the repairs had been done, and if my friend doesn't pay it in 48 hours, he'll send a debt collector after him. He paid it, out of fear, and emailed him the confirmation. The landscaping owner then emailed back saying, "This is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling secondhand electronics," followed by a, "Have a great day. Don't let this hold you back," with a smiley at the end of the email. A month later, my friend was in a bar and overhears a girl talking about how her boss, who runs a landscaping firm, did over some guy selling a water heater. My friend said, "Oh no, I gotta hear this. Do you mind if I join your table?" And the girl said sure and told the story. Her boss had brought a busted water heater from a secondhand store for $25 and a working one for $100 and billed the seller for the repair for the busted one before he sold it for $300 to some community group. My friend asked, "Who did this so I don't hire that guy to fix up my yard?" She says the company name, and lo and behold, it's on the email of the guy my friend sold the water heater to. He was the jerk in this story. He told me he was pretty angry about it, but lockdown then hit, so he had other stuff to worry about. 18 months later, he was browsing the website he originally sold the water heater on, and he saw a bunch of landscaping materials, Shovels, gardening stuff, wheelbarrows, lights for working at night, drills, nail guns, some construction materials, and a generator. Now, in my friend's location, apparently, if you're selling a generator, then you need to have a warrant of fitness for it, proving that it works, it's safe, no flayed wires, etc. Most people ignore it, and he saw that this generator is being sold by the landscaping firm. This generator, he said, just by looking at it, there was no way it would have a warrant of fitness. Word of note, failure for a business to provide the warrant upon request for a generator after 2 weeks, when reported to the official departments and enforced by the court, the punishment is a hefty fine, and the courts often force the seller to refund the affected party and pay any costs that they incurred. Evilplottingmusic.mp3. He talked to his flatmate, who agreed that they would go 50-50 on the generator, but he would transfer the money. Now, my friend had never met the landscaping firm owner face-to-face when selling the water heater. He left it outside and pickup was confirmed via his security camera. And when he gets there, it was clear that the owner, this old grumpy-looking man who enjoyed yelling at his employees, had emptied out his storage unit. The owner was very much, as it is, no refund, and the flatmate showed him the transfer confirmation and they take the generator for $800. No warrant of fitness provided. They then took it to a friend of theirs who's an electrician, and he agreed to check it out and give an invoice for repairs, and to quote the friend, "It would be cheaper to buy a new generator, and to be honest, this generator shouldn't have been sold, it should have been scrapped." They also found that the main identifier number had been scratched off, but not the second number that's often recorded on the warrant for tracking purposes. So they got in contact with the seller, telling him the cost for repair, around $5,000. He promptly tells them that he's not paying, as it is, no refund, to which they then asked, "Have you got the warrant of fitness for this generator?" Silence for 2 days. They followed up with another email asking for it. No response. They then ask again and get an email from him saying that he'll take it back for $800. They said, "No, we want the warrant," and they get no response. They emailed him every day for 2 weeks, nothing. So they printed out the original item listing that had been screenshotted and had been archived on the website and reported into the website and then to the government. 4 months later, my friend is in court and the guy went up to him. He tells him that he will take back the generator for $800 and that my friend and his flatmate will be going in to tell the judge that the seller has refunded them and that they want it all dropped, and that's what's happening here. Full stop, end of story. They're doing what they are told to do. My friend said no. So they went into the courtroom and it's over very quickly. The inspector the government sent out to inspect the generator stated that it was in poor condition, shouldn't have been sold, was highly unsafe, and that the seller had tried to get the generator a warrant in early 2021, but instead had been told that it was to be repaired or scrapped and that it was not to be sold. They identified it by a second number on the generator that they took down in the original attempt to get it a warrant, which had not been scratched off like the first. The judge ordered the landscaping firm owner to refund the flatmate the $800, pay the $5,000 for repairs to the generator, and was ordered to pay a $10,000 fine, which would be given directly to my friend's flatmate as the affected party. When they left the courtroom, the owner was furious and told them that under no uncertain terms was he paying them a penny more and that he couldn't understand what he had done to deserve such treatment. To which my friend said, "Remember the water heater?" He gave him a very confused look. "Remember the water heater you bought for $100? Well, I do, because I sold it to you, and I know that you had a different one repaired and invoiced me for it." His jaw was on the floor, and to hit it home, he said, "It sucks, doesn't it, when what goes around comes around, especially when it accumulated interest. You have 48 hours to pay or a debt collector will be contacted. Remember, this is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling secondhand electronics. Have a great day. Don't let this hold you back." And they left. He paid the $15,000 2 days later. My friend and the flatmate split the $10,000 50-50 as they agreed, combination of rent payments and study stuff. The generator they got repaired, and then they got a warrant for it before selling it for $1,000 with a newly replaced identifier number. They then went out for a wonderful dinner and night out in town. Karen, my wife, gets busted stealing from my parents' house. Huge mistake. Background: my wife, who's 28, and I, 30 male, as well as my brother and his wife, went to visit our parents as we hadn't seen them in a while. My parents, who are 57, had a box of $300 ginseng in the fridge to be given as a gift for their close friend's wedding anniversary tomorrow. We know this because it came up in conversation during lunch. They also told us to help ourselves to anything in the fridge, but to not touch the ginseng for obvious reasons. The problem came when a few hours later, my parents called us in a panic, saying that they couldn't find the ginseng and asking if anyone had seen it. I didn't take it, and at first I thought they just misplaced it somewhere. However, they insisted that they both agreed on not moving it out of the fridge drawer for that exact reason. All of us denied taking it, and the conversation got more heated when my father started yelling that someone must have taken it, since it only went missing when we came to visit. All of us continued to deny taking it, with my wife being really quiet, and my father said that if it doesn't turn up, he'd have to have everyone's belongings checked. That was when my wife admitted that she took it. Apparently, it was some popular brand that my in-laws mentioned, and she wanted to give it to them, and she thought that no one would notice since it was an inconspicuous place in the fridge. My mother-in-law later called and said that my parents overreacted over such an inconsequential thing and screamed at me that I was a jerk for not defending my wife. The thing is, in my opinion, it wasn't a small thing. My wife literally stole hundreds of dollars from my parents and tried to lie her way out of it. While I agree that my parents shouldn't have started yelling and accusing us, I feel like my wife was in the wrong for taking the ginseng in the first place. This situation has caused a lot of friction, and we haven't been speaking since coming home. Am I the jerk? Update. After making the post, I thought a lot more about the situation. I realized after reading the comments that this indeed wasn't a one-time situation. Things in our house like face creams, kitchen utensils, and even household tools would go missing, and I would just believe my wife's excuses. I feel like such an idiot for not realizing it sooner, and honestly, I can't believe she took advantage of my trust like that. I guess a part of me refused to believe the truth, which was how she thought she could get away with it this time. When I brought up divorce, she immediately threatened to call the police to arrest me for being violent, when I had never done anything like that, so that I could never find a job again. So needless to say, my lawyer is being called, and this marriage will be over very soon. I've also apologized to my parents for all this awful behavior, and they've accepted. To be honest, this is probably the best ending, and I'm kind of glad this situation happened before it went on any longer. I'm incredibly done with my hopefully soon ex-wife and her side of the family, whose mother called me again yesterday entirely remorseless and called me a childless mama's boy. Thank you everyone for all the help and comments. And to clarify a few things, from what I'm aware, mother-in-law was aware of my wife's actions, especially since she had done this sort of thing before, taking things from our house to give to them, and didn't see anything wrong with it since neither of them liked my parents. And since it was going to be a short visit, like 2 hours tops, she thought no one was going to notice the missing ginseng before we left. Not the jerk. Your wife literally stole a $300 item from your parents, and her and her mother-in-law are mad that she got caught. Honestly, if my husband did that, I'd be having a long think about continuing the marriage. Not the jerk 100%. Honestly, it would have me rethinking the marriage, since she's revealed herself to be a liar and a thief, and I don't blame your parents for yelling. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you divorce her or not? Please let us know.
What is it with people threatening to tell lies about you when you break up with them? Like, do you really think that's gonna win my heart back?
I'll meet the call count, but I won't make the calls count. I worked at a call center for a collection agency for nearly 5 years. Anybody that has worked in this type of environment knows that there are all sorts of targets that are expected to be met. The daily, the monthly, whatever. One of our targets was to make a certain number of calls per day. I believe it was 120 calls. Naturally though, the more contact you would make with debtors, the less time there was to make other calls. It's usually not an issue, but some days you might make significantly more contact than others, and sometimes your call count might be like 2/3 of what it should be. We would get regular updates on the call count, and our manager would let us know if we were on track, and at the end of the day, they would give you the final results. I found it very annoying when you would have a successful day collecting debts and generating revenue for the company, only to have a manager dwell on your call count. Any protest such as, yes, I didn't meet the call count requirement, but hey, look at the revenue I generated today. It doesn't matter, the target must be met. Even if it wasn't a successful day, but I knew I still ended up spending much time in contact with these debtors in an attempt to collect, I would ask managers to review my talk time to see that the efforts were being made to do what we're hired to do. It doesn't matter, the requirements must be met. Now, to be clear, a call only counted if someone picked up or the call went to a voicemail box that wasn't full. The system was unable to register events otherwise, meaning if you were to make hundreds of attempts in one day, only a fraction are registered. Everyone is aware of this, but it didn't matter to the company. Well, I was tired of the unfairness of it all. It also doesn't help that the company was grossly skimming our bonuses that our department's client provided to us as a reward for successfully collecting on these debts. It was really obvious when our bonuses became random numbers when it was only possible for them to be in multiples of 5. Frustrated with this literal theft and underappreciation of successful collection, the whole point of the job, I decided to comply with the call count expectations and never be under the target again. I created a notepad file with a list of all of the telephone numbers that went straight to voicemail. These are often numbers that have blocked us, or presumably the owner of the number has set it up as away or something like that. From then on, I made sure to make 15 to 20 calls per hour that would register, implying that even more calls were being made that they just couldn't see due to the way the system registered calls. I would spread these calls out so my activity wouldn't seem suspicious and would spend all day reading articles on the internet. Naturally, the revenue I had been generating decreased by about 80%. How come you're not collecting? Well, manager, you can see I am surpassing my call count target and my talk time is very low, so I'm just not getting the opportunities to do so. It should be noted that whatever I was collecting after doing so was really easy. The people whose accounts we received who could pay and wanted to pay anyway. Often these people would call us, so I just relied on that to make it appear like I was doing anything at all. They started giving me lower value portfolios to work, which was fine by me. You're stealing my bonus, the very incentive I have to do more work than the bare minimum anyway for a paycheck. I honestly thought I was quiet quitting, but no. I had a reputation as a valued member for our department and company, so no one wanted to fire me. I guess they just chalked up my lack of success to the bad portfolios they were assigning me. Steal my bonuses and dwell on a target that would be better judged as a marker of effort rather than an end-all be-all, and I couldn't care less. I was getting paid to read. This went on for nearly 2 years until I had to leave for mental health reasons. Am I the jerk for canceling the vacation when I found out that my stepdaughters hid my daughter's passport to get her to stay home? I've been married to my wife Beth for 5 years. I have a biological daughter named Jessica, she's 18. And I also have 2 stepdaughters named Monica and Leia. They're 25 and 28. Both are single moms and live with us currently. There's been issues about my stepdaughters asking my daughter to babysit their kids. Jessica didn't have a problem with it at first since this is what she does to earn money. But since her stepsisters don't pay her much, she just refused to babysit. We worked this out by having my wife take care of paying for the babysitting. I planned a family vacation for 3 days and everyone wanted to go. However, both Monica and Leia suggested that Jessica stay home and watch the kids, since Beth doesn't want her grandkids to come. They said it's because the kids are used to Jessica and hiring another babysitter would cause issues, and also that Jessica isn't too fond of our destination, but it was obvious that Jessica wanted to go. They insisted, and Beth offered to pay her double, and there was just a lot of back and forth until I demanded that they stop bringing it up. We were supposed to go last week, but when everyone had packed their bags and it was time to go, Jessica found out that she didn't have her passport on her. We searched her bag, then went home and searched there. Beth and my stepdaughters kept insisting that we go back to the airport or else we'd miss our flight. They insisted that Jessica stay at home with the kids. They even told the new babysitter to go home because she was no longer needed. I refused to go and kept searching for the passport until Monica admitted that she helped Leia hide Jessica's passport to get her to stay home with the kids. I was livid. I tried to get her to tell me where it was, but she said Leia had it. Leia denied, so I threatened to cancel the vacation, and that's when they gave it back. I decided to actually cancel the vacation and blew up at both of them and berated them. They stayed upstairs for a while, and Beth refused to speak to me and said that I punished my stepdaughters for worrying about their kids and wanting them to stay with someone they know. I got told I overreacted and ruined the trip for everybody. Edit. Kicking the stepdaughters out is not possible since my wife co-owns the house that we currently live in. Not the jerk. And to be honest, I would have kicked your wife and lazy no-good stepkids out right then and there and ended the marriage. If they were 12, I might understand this level of entitlement and immaturity, but in their late 20s? And what on earth is wrong with your wife? You should have roasted them for pulling this BS. Not the jerk. You don't just have a stepdaughter problem, you have a wife problem too. I would rethink your current family situation and how your daughter is being treated. Am I the jerk for insisting my partner skip a work event? I, 32 female, have been with Paul, 34 male, for 4 years. A year ago, we were in an accident. Paul was driving and 100% at fault. Paul had no injuries, but I broke my back. I was in a back brace for months, and I'm still going to PT. After I was out of the brace, I started going to the gym and running, and at this point, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. I'm really proud of the progress I've made. A month ago, I found out that there was a 10K race on the 1-year anniversary of the accident in a mountain town about 3 hours away. I thought this would be a fun and positive way to spend the day and celebrate my recovery. I suggested this idea to Paul, my 2 best friends, and their partners. The plan was to drive there Friday afternoon, run the 10K on Saturday morning, and spend the rest of the weekend exploring the town. Everyone was on board. Paul recently started a new job. It's fully remote, and he hasn't met his coworkers yet. He's supposed to fly out to San Francisco to meet his team the Monday after our weekend trip. We knew this when we made our plans. A few days before our trip, Paul told me his bosses now want him to be in San Francisco on Sunday because they got box seats to a Giants game and they want him to come, so he would no longer be able to come on our trip. I thought he was joking because he likes to make fun of corporate culture, but he was serious. I told him to explain the situation and that they can't expect him to be available with less than a week's notice. He said he had already told them yes and he didn't want to backtrack. So I asked him to tell them he forgot he had a wedding to attend or something like that. And he said he didn't want to turn down the offer because it would be a really good networking opportunity. I suggested he join on Friday as planned and drive back late Saturday and early Sunday to catch his flight. He said no because he didn't want to drive 6 hours round trip just for 1 day. I suggested he fly out of the regional airport nearby, which he also shot down because it would be too expensive. He makes good money, so this wouldn't be a financial burden. I was almost in tears at this point, pleading him to come and telling him how important it was to me. When I realized he wasn't going to budge, I stopped trying to convince him, but I did let him know I was hurt and angered by his decision. The morning I was supposed to leave, Paul was trying to be affectionate and sweet towards me, but I'm still pretty upset, so I was admittedly pretty mean to him, and I rejected all his attempts at affection. Now he's upset with me for ruining our last day together and also for pressuring him to skip his work event. I think he's a jerk for prioritizing a baseball game over a celebration of my recovery, especially considering he's the one that caused my injury in the first place. My friends are on my side, but I'd like some unbiased perspective. Not the jerk on the initial part, but then you said, especially considering he's the one that caused my injury in the first place. That sounds really, really nasty. Guilt-tripping him for the rest of your life with him won't be good emotionally. Is the whole celebration of your progress a moment to rub his nose in the fact he caused it? Good luck. OP, you are such a bigger and nicer person than I am. Not once did you remind him that the trip was to celebrate your progress in recovery after he broke your back. I would have. Having said that, he was provided a couple of alternatives that were more than reasonable. And why is he paying for a flight and travel for business? Not the jerk. But he has shown you where you rank in his priorities. I would imagine if you look back in your relationship, you'll find you've taken the backseat more than not. OP. Opinions seem to be pretty evenly divided. I do want to clarify a couple things. I never tried to get Paul to come by saying or implying the injury was his fault. Yes, I was thinking it, but I've never used that against him. There are obviously resentment issues, which is something I'm working through, but I would never say that to his face. A lot of people are saying I am the jerk because I was pressuring him to skip his work event. When I realized how important it was to him, I tried to compromise with him to be able to make both events happen. It was his refusal to compromise that was upsetting. Not the jerk. Paul is the one that ruined the day, not you. He was at fault for the accident that could have been much worse. Thankfully, you're making great progress. It's completely understandable why this event would mean so much to you. Paul shouldn't have agreed to go the day earlier without talking to you first. Instead, he immediately told them he'd be there. He didn't prioritize you at all and is blaming you for the fallout. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. You don't want to wait in the ED? If you insist. I work as a security guard for one of the few hospitals in our city. Besides dealing with combative patients and visitors and doing patrols around the campus, we occasionally get asked to assist with getting people out of their vehicles and escorting them by wheelchair to the emergency department or their appointment at an on-site clinic. Today, a couple of nurses came to our office asking for our help. They had received a call from a gentleman who we will call Gerald, asking for help to get out of their car, as he was in severe pain. I went out with the nurses, pushing a wheelchair and radioing my partner to come assist, as it sounded like it was going to take some extra hands to help him out. It took a little bit for us to find him, but we found him thanks to him blowing his car horn for all to hear. Now, I have interacted with dramatic people before, and this guy was no different. He told us all about how he was in so much pain, how he drove himself all the way over here and couldn't move the car anymore, and how he needed to be treated. We tried to offer help, but he refused to grab our arms or hands to steady himself, relying on the car door and the wheelchair to get himself in it. Once he got himself settled, he asked me to move the vehicle to a better parking spot. After all, he had handicap stickers and he needed the space to get in when he finished his visit here, so I obliged, feeling a little bit odd about the whole situation, and moved his car to a handicap spot near the ED entrance. Gerald got checked in at the ED and we were done with the situation. At least that's what I thought. Boy, were we wrong. Not even 20 minutes later, I get told that this guy wanted to leave and wanted us to take him back to his car. Apparently, he started complaining and moaning about how the wait time was too long. Keep in mind that there were people in the waiting room who had been there for hours. The ED was very full today, and this guy couldn't stand being there for even just a few minutes. I first checked with ED staff because I was worried about the fact that he himself said he couldn't drive. They told me that since they hadn't triaged him and he wanted to leave so soon, they legally couldn't hold him here even if they wanted to, which they didn't care that much since they were already busy with treating their patients. So I went back out to the ED and I asked him point blank if he was really sure he wanted to leave, because I didn't want to be held responsible in case he drove and got into an accident. But he said yes, he wanted to leave right then and there. So I reluctantly pushed him out of the ED and towards his car. This is where my malicious compliance begins. Gerald starts saying, verbatim, "When we get to my car, I'm gonna call the ambulance." Me, "Wait, what?" Gerald, "Yeah, gonna call an ambulance. I can't drive, and I don't like anyone here except for you. They're too slow here, and I'm not gonna spend all night here. Besides, calling an ambulance will get me to a room quicker, and I can get help with my pain." Me, "So you want to call an ambulance to take you to the ED when you're already here at the ED? And all that because the wait time is too long for you?" "Yeah." Me, "You realize that if you call an ambulance, they may just take you back to the waiting area and have you wait there, right?" "Yeah, I know that. I'm still gonna call." Well, okay, if that's really what you want to do. So after helping the guy to his car, I decided to let him do just that. At that point, there was nothing else I could really do. After all, I'm just a security guard, not his doctor. So I just pushed the wheelchair back inside and went about my business. About 30 minutes later, I'm looking at the security footage, and right there next to the guy's car is an ambulance. My jaw dropped. The guy actually called 911 for an ambulance, and they came. I continued to watch as the EMT workers helped this guy into a gurney and placed him into the ambulance. Then, to my utter shock, they drove off campus. I had thought they were going to drop him off back here, but they left for another hospital. I then realized a couple of things. One, this guy's going to another hospital and going to be gone for who knows how long. Two, when he gets discharged, he's not going to have a ride home because, you guessed it, his car is here at the hospital. Plus, our policy is that if a car is parked in our lot for longer than a few days and we've confirmed that the owner is not here, we have to call the police and report an abandoned vehicle. So this guy is now getting additional costs added to his medical expenses because he took the ambulance, possibly has to wait even longer in another ED before he can even be seen, and he may rack up some fines for abandoning his car depending on how long it's there. All because he didn't want to wait in the ED with everyone else. But hey, I guess 20 minutes was way too much for him. Am I the jerk for taking my garbage out late at night? I'm a newly minted single mom of 2 tornadoes and rarely have the time for everything in my day. I've all but given up doing big cleans while they're awake. Collect garbage, tidying, fixing, all I can do is damage control. Once they go to bed, I put a podcast on and I do the real cleaning. Another tricky side note, my 4-year-old has insomnia and sometimes I have to start a bit later than normal. Kitchen, bathroom, living room, litter boxes, take the garbage out and to the curb once a week. Sometimes I can't get to that point until 11 p.m., on rare occasions 3 a.m. I'm not a monster though. I place my bags gently in the bin and roll it down to the curb. The rolling can be loud and the bins are massive, so I keep it on the grass to cushion some of the noise. My neighbor was so kind to let me know that he called the police because there was someone in the back alley late at night where the bins are stored and picked up on collection day, but the police couldn't be bothered to show up. I told him, "That may have been me actually. Don't worry about crimes and that. I'm just trying to get some cleaning done." Today I asked him, "Hey, we haven't spoken in a while. You guys okay?" He was not happy. "Well, I'm not used to noisy neighbors who think it's okay to take the garbage out after 6 p.m. I told him that time management can be difficult on my own, but he brushed me off. He said that even my neighbors across the way think little of me. Am I the jerk for cleaning later in the day into the night? Update. He's a bit of a strange old man with a crappy delivery, but I'd like to say, while he may have been rude, he's not a complete jerk. As an apology, he started mowing my front lawn. I came running out to stop him, but his lady was out there giving me grandma eyes, saying, "Good luck stopping him." I gave them coffee and tea, thanked them profusely, and we'll see how that goes. Maybe my yard was an eyesore. Maybe he's apologizing. Let's find out. We had a big chat about the garbage can noise, and I've apologized profusely. Keep the peace, boys, keep the peace. And I'll just keep my head down from here out, counting down the days to moving back to a real city and not a cliquey old folks suburb town. Not the jerk. Your neighbor is being obnoxious. This is not a big deal, and even if it was, the right move would have been to come talk to you about it. They're passive-aggressive, and I would discount them and anything they say from this point. Am I the jerk for asking my brother for money to fix my car, knowing that it would come out of my niece's college fund? So I, 36 male, have a brother, Mike, who's 44. He has a daughter, Addie, who's 16. For her 16th birthday, Mike bought Addie a used but still very nice car. She totaled it 2 months later in an accident where she was 100% at fault, and Mike did not buy her another one. So far, she's gotten by with Mike's car, but he recently had to take a business trip out of town and was worried about her being home alone without a car. He asked me to lend her my car for a few days as a favor. My wife and I each have one, and it wouldn't be a major inconvenience to me. I reluctantly agreed. When it was time for me to take my car back, Mike told me that Addie had accidentally put diesel fuel in it and that it had died in their driveway. I had it towed to a repair shop and asked for the $1,500, the amount quoted to by my mechanic, from Mike to get it fixed. Mike told me that he would transfer the money soon, and I told him to take as much time as he needed. Later that afternoon, Mike's wife Lisa called me to tell me that the money for my car would be coming out of Addie's already meager college fund. She begged me to let the money go because Addie needs that money for college. She actually started crying, and I started feeling really bad. The thing is, I do have the money to pay for the repairs. I'd have to take it out of mine and my wife's shared savings account. I actually already have with my wife's permission. I would put the money from Mike into that same savings account to restore the original amount. Even so, I told Lisa that Addie needs to have consequences for her actions, and if that means she has less money for college, then that's what that means. She meekly agreed and hung up. Yesterday, I got a text from my sister. She basically called me a selfish jerk for taking money out of Addie's college fund over a stupid mistake. She said that I was being cruel and that she knows I have the money, so I should just bite the bullet and let them keep the money. Now I'm struggling with this dilemma, and I figured that I should get some unbiased perspective. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Addie needs to get a job and pay for something to learn the value of $1. I would say the biggest problem is that it seems like Addie has not been taught correctly about how to be a responsible person with cars. Kids do stupid stuff, but kids are more likely to do stupid stuff when they are not taught correctly by their parents. If she's that way with cars, she's probably that way with other aspects of her life. Again, given that she's 16, I would say that this is her parents' fault for not teaching their daughter correctly. Addie should get a summer job to pay for that $1,500. Her parents obviously work and get by, so I doubt that they would be dependent on her income. Let her pay for it. Depending on how hard she works, you could cut her a break if she's a little short at the end of the summer, or you could make her pay every penny. It shouldn't be coming out of her parents' pocket, your pocket, or her college fund. She's 16 and can drive. She can work. 20 hours a week at $7.25 an hour is $150. It would take her 10 weeks at a minimum wage job to pay you back. Assuming she works June and July, that would be around 8 weeks. It's still May. No excuse. Actually, since she's 16 and the dad asked for the car, the responsibility is 100% on the parents. The parents can choose how it's paid and what the consequences are for Addie, But it's not up to OP to tell them how to parent or where to get the money from. Likewise, it's the parents who have decided it's coming out of the college fund, so really not okay to try and guilt OP about where the money's coming from. That was their own parental decision. The parents need to grow up and take responsibility for their own decisions and responsibilities. Need me to stay back and cover a shift? This will cost you big time. This comes from about 15 plus years ago, when I was, and still am, working with people with disabilities in a community home. It's a great job for those who like it, a terrible one for those who don't, meaning that any staff you meet are either very new or long-term like myself. As a consequence, the turnover rate of staff is high, and replacement staff are slow to be hired, meaning you often find shifts not covered straight away. This is an industry where simply not having a shift filled isn't an option, particularly where I work, in a house with a single day staff and a single night staff, each working 12 shifts on a 7-day spread over a 2-week roster. There are some strict rules regarding hours you can work, intended to avoid burnout, but more used to keep a rein of overtime, which in our industry is paid at plus 70% your hourly rate for the first 3 hours above your 76-hour fortnightly maximum, and plus 100% for any time after that. You can't demand overtime, but if they require you to work longer, they can't not pay you for overtime. Also worth noting is that people we work with are vulnerable, meaning they cannot be left unsupervised. Long story short, you can't go home until your replacement arrives. So back in the early 2000s, we were having problems locating staff. Lots of people working overtime and a lot of fresh faces appearing and disappearing. The house I worked in wasn't difficult in particular. 4 adults with intellectual disability, but there was no support, by which I mean the worker there had to fend for themselves. There was no supervisor in the next building, they were miles and miles away. I'd frequently at this time had to stay back half an hour, waiting for staff to come replace me. I was less than happy with how it was handled each time I called the office to tell them, "The night staff haven't arrived. Do you know who's booked?" To which I'd get the reply, "We're still looking. How late can you stay?" The obvious answer was, "Until I'm replaced." But what I often said was, "I prefer not to stay after the end of my shift, but that doesn't seem to matter now, so I'll just stay until someone comes." Every time a new face arrived, I'd give them all the information they'd need for the shift, introduce them, walk them through their duties, etc. This would take 20 to 30 minutes. The point being, I don't just jump ship when a staff member arrives to replace me. This is someone's home and I like them, so I'm not going to leave them in the hands of someone uninformed. Cut to that weekend. My roster had me working 12-hour days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Come Friday night, my replacement didn't arrive. I waited. I sent a text message to the supervisor after 15 minutes, then called after 30. Left a message, and when they eventually called back, I could tell they had not found a replacement. I told them I'd stay until they did. This was, by that time, an hour after I was meant to finish, 10 p.m. Come 11, they call me and say they simply can't find a replacement. They offer a deal and say if I can stay and do the night shift, I can take the next shift off. It's pretty even, so you won't miss out, they said. Then they changed their tone and said, "It's not really a request. We have no other option. Treat this as a direction." I reminded them it was a passive house, meaning you got half the hourly rate from midnight, but you could sleep in the bed provided, so I'd actually be taking a pay cut. They didn't know what else they could do, so I made a suggestion. I'd stay and do the night shift, but I wasn't going to give up my next shift. I was going to do that one as well. They agreed. It meant that they didn't need to find a replacement for me in the morning, so they thought it was a good deal for them. It was, however, an even better deal for me. It took a few emails over the weekend with the union to sort out the particulars, but what happened was this. Once I couldn't leave my work site because of a lack of replacement, I was on overtime. As this overtime was because of a direction, not voluntary, it remained in place until I went home. Because I didn't agree to drop my following day shift, my overtime continued till I ended on Saturday night. The upshot being that working 36 hours in a row resulted in the equivalent of 60 hours worth of pay. I was the first person to, as they say, pull this stunt, and word got around that if you didn't get replaced, you were actually the person who was in a position of power. It didn't take long until the department put a little more effort into training and employing extra staff, so something like this would never happen again. Not to me, at least. My daughter is demanding I pay her Ivy League college tuition with my retirement savings. I'm 40, male, and my wife is 40, female. We have a 17-year-old daughter who is in the stage in life where she needs to think about college. My wife and I have agreed that we will pay for her 2 years in community college in our town and 2 years in a university to finish her bachelor's. My daughter was on board with this until recently. She now wants to go all 4 years to an Ivy League school because that's what her friends are doing apparently. We have plans of retiring early, and an extra $50,000 or so is really going to push us back on that, so I'm not on board with that idea. Also, it's not like she has tons of money saved to get an apartment elsewhere, so odds are we would have to pay for that as well. It's a firm no for me, which has made my daughter incredibly upset with me. She's been guilting my wife, and now she feels bad for her and thinks we should do it. Apparently, she thinks she's going to miss out on a huge opportunity and will feel excluded from her friend group. Community college is also lame in my daughter's mind, which is an incredibly privileged thing to say in my opinion. Big financial decisions in our marriage require a yes from both of us, and it has always been this way, but now my wife is upset with me too. Now mother-in-law is also involved, and I'm the villain to everyone. We could technically afford it, but as I said before, it would really push back our plans in life, which I'm not okay with. And keep in mind, I'm not forbidding her from doing it, it just won't be on my wife and I's dime. I'm completely indifferent to paying the same amount and her getting loans to cover the rest, should she really want to go that badly. I feel crazy for even posting this, because I don't see how I could be the jerk, but since everyone is mad at me, it does make me wonder. You're the jerk if you can afford it. My parents agreed to cover half of wherever I decided to go and made me apply to both cheaper schools and the expensive art schools I wanted to go to, as well as financial aid and scholarships. Then we sat down and plotted out the expenses for each one I was accepted into so they could really explain the financial situation to me. This is her first major adult decision. I think it's best to help her make her own decision. Also, I don't really believe that she said, "I want to be with my friends." That sounds like your interpretation. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.